No, I understand she's now the CEO.
Not over COVID.
Yeah, no.
But I had a bio.
So she might be pretty busy coming up.
I imagine she is. I've been halfway expecting her to resign.
I wonder about that.
I put myself together on Wednesday and I'm like,
There's a lot of it around.
yeah. You know, and I do vaccinations and all that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've been okay. And, so, an okay summer.
Beautiful summer this year, wasn't it? Hard to believe. And the year was next. Last year was the year was this year it was, couldn't have been better.
President Covello,
Yes.
we are online and live and ready whenever you are.
All right, everyone, let's get ready and get going here. Let's see, we've got, I see Troy and Ruben and Chief Francisco online. Haven't heard from Jenny. Director Laramendi, would you do a roll call for us, please?
Mr. President, President Covello,
Present.
Commissioner Torgerson appears to be absent. Commissioner Bowl. Commissioner Schiffer.
Here.
Commissioner Broussard.
Here.
Vice President Rithaller.
Present.
Commissioner Cura.
Here.
Commissioner Francisco.
Here.
Commissioner Wildcat appears to be absent. Senator Kolb, Legislative Liaison.
Yeah, present.
Thanks, sir. Representative Davis.
Here.
And Governor's Liaison, Mr. Lebanon, appears to be absent. President Covello, you have a quorum.
Very good. Would you proceed with the welcome?
Mr. President, thank you. Welcome to the September 19th, 2025 special meeting of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. The primary mission of the Wyoming Gaming Commission is the protection of the wagering public and the health, safety, and welfare of the participants in all lawful gaming and parimutuel activity. Individuals who wish to address the commission will be recognized and called on by the president to speak. After the president has recognized you, please clearly state your name and the name of the organization you represent prior to addressing the commission. All comments, questions, and responses must flow through the president by addressing the president each time you wish to speak. This procedure ensures an orderly flow of discussion during the commission meeting. All meetings of the governing body of an agency are public meetings open to the public except as otherwise provided pursuant to Wyoming Statute 164403A. This meeting is being held in person at the Thyra Thompson Building, available online via Zoom, and you can watch it on the Commission's YouTube link. The Commission may open an executive session pursuant to Wyoming Statute 164405A. Inclusion on the agenda does not necessarily constitute a commission action.
Thank you, Director Laramendi. Now, if you'd all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Now let's move on to item number 2, the agenda. Does anyone have any issues with anything on the agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Do I hear a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the consent list. I do notice one item, number C, should be item number 10A through F, not 12A through F. Historic horse racing, I believe.
President Covello, that is correct. That was my mistake.
No biggie. We don't expect you to be perfect. Just right.
I so move that we accept the approval of the consent list item.
We have a motion to approve the consent list.
I second it.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anything anyone would like to see removed for further discussion instead of having it on the consent? Hearing nothing, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have now, do we need to now approve it? Are we good?
President Covello, we're good now.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, moving on. Number 4 is part of the consent agenda, so we'll move to number 5. As far as general commission business for the president report, I would like to say that I had a chance to listen in and actually be a part of some of the interim meetings that have gone on. Want to thank Senator Kolb for all the hard work he's doing over there with the special committee on gaming. And with that, I would turn it back to Vice President Ritholler.
Thank you, President Cavella. Yes, I'd have to tag on to what you just said and the hard work the committee is doing, putting a lot of time into it. I do want to apologize for being Zoom and not present. I got in late last night, so I couldn't make Casper. And this morning, the fog, you could almost see the front of your pickup. But I don't know if everybody else is having fog, but the travel, I was worried about traveling this morning at 4 o'clock. So apologize. Thank you, President.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fog in the state right now. Director Laramendi.
Thank you, President Covello. I have actually several items real quickly. I'll try to be quick, I should say. Legislative updates. The Select Committee on Gaming met in Evanston on the 7th and 8th. TRW actually met here in Casper on the 19th of August. And the Select Committee on Capital Finance met in September, on September 9th in Cheyenne. All 3 of those are considering legislation related to gaming. The TRW met here on the 19th to consider 26 LSO 0114. It's a gaming proceeds outdoor recreation. This bill was sponsored by TRW. What this bill will ultimately do is take online sports wagering proceeds. Currently, the first $300,000 goes to the Department of Health every fiscal year, and then the remainder goes into the general fund. With this bill, it changes the general fund distribution to half to the general fund and then half to the outdoor recreation trust fund that this bill would create. That's the only thing that TRW was considering. The Select Committee on Capital Finance met on September 9th in Cheyenne. They were considering several different bills. The first one was 26 LSO 0124, which was a central monitoring system. The title of this was to require the Wyoming Gaming Commission to develop and operate a central monitoring system as specified. Specified the requirements for gaming machines in Wyoming, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, requiring rulemaking, and providing the effective dates. This bill, after it was worked, it failed to receive majority support from both sides, from the House and Senate. So it died there, but this could be brought back as an individually sponsored bill. With that, I would just like to say that we do have in our rules on the skill-based amusement game side of it, that the commission may procure a central monitoring system. We've been in the works for this for quite some time. If you remember a couple of years ago, we had sent this out for RFP. We didn't get any responses, and when we began sole sourcing it, the only quote really that we got back was in excess of $2.3 million a year, which was not feasible fiscally. We have been working very diligently the past probably 18 months with individual developers and other software folks to come up with a CMS system that really fits what the commission needs. We will continue working on that. They also considered 26 LSO 0129, which was online sports wagering revenue. It was an act related to gaming, increasing the remittance of revenue from online sports wagering and providing for an effective date. This would have increased the tax on online sports wagering from 10% to 20%. This failed to receive majority support from both houses. This also could be brought back as an individually sponsored bill. They had two other bills that were not considered. 26 LSO 130, skill-based amusement games. This was to increase the tax rate on skill-based amusement games from 20 to 25% and divert some of the distributions to a state highway fund. That one was not considered. 26 LSO 131, parimutuel wagering highway fund. This would have increased the tax rate on parimutuel activity, 1% on total handle. That also would have diverted some of those distributions to a state highway fund. That also was not considered. The Select Committee on Gaming met September 11th in Cheyenne. They considered several different bills. The first one was 26 LSO 169. This was gambling amendments. This was an act related to crimes and offenses, amending and creating exceptions to the offense of gambling, amending definitions, and providing an effective date. The purpose of this is to try to clean up the professional and illegal gambling side under Title VI of Wyoming statutes. This bill received support from both sides and was referred to Management Council for sponsorship. The Select Committee on Gaming is unable to sponsor legislation, so they'll work it, they'll refer it to another body that can sponsor. This one they've sent to Management Council for their consideration to sponsor. 26 LSO 146 was the anti-money laundering bill. This was a bill actually that started last year. They worked this bill. This one also received majority support and was referred to Management Council as well. 26 LSO 168, parimutuel simulcasting amendments. This was an act related to parimutuel wagering, amending requirements, approval and restrictions for simulcasting, permits, facilities, and terminals as specified, requiring rulemaking, authorizing local zoning for simulcasting, parimutuel wagering facilities, authorizing termination of non-conforming use as specified, specifying applicability, and providing for effective dates. This bill was worked and is being considered. We kind of ran out of time in this meeting, so this was set back and may come up at an additional meeting. The other two bills that they had was 145, which was also local approval for simulcasting. It's just granting cities and counties a little more control over it in a different way versus zoning and special use permits. We ran out of time. That one was not considered. There's also 26 LSO 152, which was a historic horse racing moratorium bill. This was an act related to parimutuel wagering, temporarily prohibiting the issuance of new permits to conduct and expand simulcasting as specified, making conforming amendments, providing for a sunset date, and providing an effective date. This was also not considered as we ran out of time. The Select Committee will be seeking approval from Management Council for an additional meeting. If that happens and how that happens, I will let you all know when that is scheduled, if it's scheduled. And I will pause there before I move on in case Senator Kolb has anything that I missed or that I'm wrong on and wants to correct me.
Yes, we have our own liaison, Senator Kolb, co-chair of that. And Senator, do you have something for us today?
Well, first, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and Nick was there during the meeting. Just a brief update about the different idea came up about zoning. Frankly, it's a dead end in my opinion, just to tell you how this would work. There is no future for a zoning scheme. And I tell you that really the bottom line came down to this, is that we can consider the market saturated at this point for HHR machines. Let's just say it's at 90% of market capacity. Any change we make, let's just, for argument's sake, we'll say it works. You know, the zoning would work. Well, how can it work when 90% is already saturated? I mean, I'm just throwing that out as a percentage number. It can't effectively make a change because of the issue of a taking with a zoning change. So basically you'd have a non-conforming use with a zoning change that you can continue on with, maybe until you maybe sell the business, maybe that might be the opportunity to update the zoning. But it can't work because we've already got a market that there's no room for the change, right? So that's the problem with the zoning. And with zoning, there's no real mechanism legally to go in there and say the amount of machines you have is limited to a location, because zoning doesn't work like that. So that's problematic. And also counties without zoning, which we have a lot of counties that this doesn't have zoning in it, they would have a right to do whatever they wanted to do. There is no local control of that mechanism. So there's a lot of issues with that. I mean, that's my opinion as the chair of the Senate side of this. But we're working with a task force that has many members in it, that aren't all the same as me. So it's going to be worked through. We'll see what happens. I think revamping the House bill that got tabled basically until the next meeting is still a viable vehicle that can make it through the process. And then the moratorium bill draft, that obviously is necessary as a backup in case these other bills fail. We can put a moratorium on this until we have time to figure it out. But that's, in a broad view, that's what's going on there. And I guess I'd be wanting to take any questions from the Gaming Commission if you had some on just why we're doing what we're doing. But this is going to all work in concert with you folks, chairman and members. This isn't going to work unless we all work together. So if you see an issue or a question, please ask it. Either call me or you can say it now if you have one. But we gotta work as a team here, because if we don't work as a team, we're going to get taken out during the process. So thanks for the opportunity to comment, Mr. Chairman, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Senator Cole? Comments? I have one comment to make with regards to this, Nick. With regards to the central monitoring system, I know there's something that we did put an RFP out for, and you and I have talked several times about where this could be headed. I know that you're continuing to pursue a method to do this without having to, I guess, penalize any of the different types of operators and still be able to get the information that we're eventually looking for. So we'll be anxious to see where this goes in the future and what you're able to come up with. So thank you for that. You have anything else?
President Cavella, I do have a couple more things on that line. I'm hoping that it's going to be very soon. Like I said, we have been working on this for probably no less than 18 months. We have almost weekly meetings with one of the developers. The developer has been working, hand in glove with sports wagering folks, HHR folks, operators, vendors across the spectrum. So we're making good progress on that. So hopefully I'll have something soon on that. One other thing, well, I actually have a few other things, but when we go back to the legislative side, one of the things that I wanted to maybe put on your radar to talk about, or maybe just make you aware of, a lot of times in these committee meetings, there's a lot of question arising about the number of approved terminals versus the number of active terminals. In some of these instances, there's, I guess what you'd say, a reasonable reason for that, i.e. we have some of these very large properties that are under construction and being built. In some of the other areas, maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense as to why we have a disconnect. So we're starting to look through the study and putting that together in terms of saturation levels. And when we start renewing permits, HHR permits, live event permits, some of these locations, in years past, what we've done is you get an application for the live event, and then you get a live application or a simulcast application that's all encompassing for all of their locations. And it's just kind of, a reapproval of exactly what has happened. And I think it might be time that we start looking at some of these locations and the feasibility of these locations Just for example, we've got some locations that have been approved for 190 terminals that are working at 130. So I think in that instance, I'll work with the operators to make sure that the operators are aware that this location and this location they need to probably bring to you all the reason why there's that disconnect and what their plan is to fill that disconnect, or the commission may need to consider amending these approvals moving forward to make those numbers tighter, to where there's not just unused machines laying around there, because that has become a big question. Currently today, we have 6,403 machines that have been approved. We have 3,000 in operation. Again, there's 3 properties off the top of my head that absolutely make sense. These are large builds that take a couple of years to build out, and these are big. So those ones account for a lot of that, but there is some other ones that might need to be considered. Just put that on your radar. That'll be brought up more in the November meeting when we start going through the permitting of these locations. Like I said, I'll work with the operators. I don't want them to feel blindsided in November. I'll make sure that they're aware of the thoughts and how that'll be presented to you all. And then the last couple of things that I have, September 25th, next week, actually, myself, Mr. Steinberg, and actually Mr. Kaler will be in Rock Springs attending the Wyoming Association of County Officers annual meeting, right? Annual meeting? I believe so. I think it's their annual meeting. Mr. Steinberg and I will be presenting to them just kind of like the state of gaming and what we do and how we do it. And then the last thing that I have for you, October 7th, Mr. Steinberg and I will be in Cheyenne for our budget hearing with the governor's office. And I will be sending the budget book to you all here very soon for you all to review prior to that meeting. So if you have any thoughts, you can get them to me before that. Mr. President, that's all I have.
Thanks, Nick. I think that's important that we start looking at the number of machines that have been approved and what the plans are. I know that listening to the meetings, I think there's several members, quite a few members of the legislature that are concerned about that. And I think we need to find out what the plans are and just not put those out as placeholders, but rather have some solid plans going forward. So we appreciate that. Does anyone have anything for Nick with regards to his report? Any discussion? Yes, certainly. Senator Colby, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the number of machines because it's really come up as a question with a lot of members of the task force. And really, I'll say it really revolves around the open-endedness of the approval. There's no date certain to get these things going, these machines. And I think that's really probably the biggest thing that I see is that. So it isn't that I don't understand that people want assurances that they're going to have a certain number of machines available for their facility. That's understandable as a business. But what's really kind of came up is like, well, when? I mean, in what, 10 years, 20 years? I mean, when are these machines going to get utilized? That's really the question that came up. And frankly, as a business point of view, they probably want to lock as many machines up as possible to basically snuff out the competition. I think there's other reasons why people would do this. So at the end of the conversation, and really the question is just how long is that pre-approval good for, right? I mean, right now it seems like it's in perpetuity. It's just going to be an approved number of machines, and just maybe consider putting an expiration date on that approval. Like say we'll give you like 2 years to put these in. If you don't, it expires. I mean, something instead of this open-ended thing, because it's causing a lot of concern in the task force, and I can say that pretty in a blanket way. So that's kind of where we're at here. Oh, I see Representative Davis is there. And just to, I guess, give a little bit of a reason for the questioning. And once again, if somebody'd like to have a conversation about that, I'm certainly more than willing to do that because, once again, I think that's legislatively a pretty common held belief is like, well, what is going on here? You know, with these number of approved machines compared to the number of machines that are actually being used. So thank you for the chance to comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Anyone else?
President Covello, if I may, just piggybacking on what Senator Kolb just said, you know, it's also important to remember that, you know, we look at these feasibility studies when we approve these, and then when these machines sit dormant and another operation comes into play with adding terminals, that original feasibility study is probably changed. So we do need to look at the dates for approval and the expansion in these communities. All of that stuff will be afforded to you all in detail so we can see how, you know, so we can make the best decisions moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Laramendi. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If my memory serves me correctly, a lot of these machines went dormant back during COVID when we had to have the social distancing. And then they discovered that the people like social distancing, and so they didn't put the machines back in. So some of that inventory is due to that. But I agree that we need to come back and have a date expired on, best used by, or whatever you want to call it, and look into that. But that's some of the history on why there are a lot of machines that aren't currently being used.
Anything else, Dr. Laramendi?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6, cowboy racing.
One moment, please, sir.
Will went to the bathroom? Okay. You'll have that. Do we have the pictures that they requested available?
President Covello, I do. I will get those ready to load up here.
Would there be any reason we couldn't do 7 and come back to 6? Mike, do you have a problem with that? Is that okay?
That works fine, Mr. President.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 7. We'll come back to 6 in a moment. So item number 7, 307 Horse Racing LLC. You're up.
Mr. President, item number 7 is a request from 307 Horse Racing for a terminal addition to the Torrington OTB site. You'll see on your, in the packet, there's the draft version of the county approval. It was not signed in the packet, so you actually have a signed copy in front of you. I also emailed that out to the folks that are not in the room. Moving on here, on September 3rd, the commission received a request from 307 Horse Racing requesting inclusion on the agenda to add or to seek approval to add 80 HHR terminals to the Torrington location. The current approval for the Torrington location in Goshen County is 70. This approval would bring that number to 150. Goshen County currently has 1 operational OTB. The total terminal counts for Goshen County is 70 terminals, with 70 terminals being in operation. They're operating at 100% of their approved capacity. Goshen County has a population of 12,498 people. The current statewide average terminal per person rate is 1 for every 100 people. With this approval, Goshen County's rate would be 1 for every 83 people. The Spectrum Gaming study stated that Goshen County is currently operating at 0.85% of the AGI for HHR and is performing above estimated levels. It's important with this location to view it in its entirety with its closeness to the Nebraska line. A lot of business coming from this location is coming from across the border. And that really is the reason for this request to begin with, is to meet the demand from the Nebraska side of the border. The county commission has approved this increase of terminals to 150, and I would stand for any questions, and I'm sure they can speak to more of their plans if so desired.
Ms. Laycock, Mr. Ridgway, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Kyle Ridgway, Wyoming president of 307 Horse Racing in Wyoming Downs. So some of the board members are intimately familiar with how long it took us to actually get this location originally approved in Goshen County. I think I spent the better part of 18 months and probably 6 or 7 different county commission meetings before they approved this original one. And this was one of the first resolutions. It was the one immediately after Converse County where they put all the custom language in it about time limits and machine cap, and there's actually a minimum tax revenue guarantee in this resolution. So we started with 45 machines. It opened in January of 2024. In the winter of 2025, we went to 70 machines from 45 and saw increased demand. We had to go back to the county first to receive approval because the resolution from the county capped us at 70 machines. So I think it was the first meeting of September, I spent 30 to 45 minutes testifying to the county commission there about why we needed the additional machines and answered questions at a public hearing, which they ultimately approved. The only change to the resolution being the machine cap. So all the remaining restrictions on our operation stayed in place. This current location, 50% of our play comes from Nebraska based on our internal information. So what we explained to the county is that, there's about 30,000 people or so in that greater area with these additional machines, which do fit in the existing footprint of the property. The way it's going to be laid out, we're just going to have to reduce the size of the dining area for the restaurant to go to more machines. We would estimate that we'll almost double the tax revenue for Goshen County. Right now, they're receiving about $40,000 a month of tax revenue from our location. We project that would go to about $70,000 a month if we were running at full capacity. It'll take some time to obviously grow the market and get there. You may not go from 70 to 150 right away. We may go to 100 and then 125 as the demand comes across. Goshen County is actually a really positive story for the industry. Their chairman, Mike McNamee, has talked publicly about the fact that for the first time in a long time, they are using the tax revenue from our location to give them excess funds for cash matches for grants, which they would otherwise have not had the ability to do for road improvements, water, all the rest of those kind of things that the county needs. So the partnership with Goshen County has been really strong, and I think those commissioners have been really happy with our community involvement there. So we thought it prudent to go to the 150 machines so that we can continue to improve that facility. We bought that piece of real estate. We totally redid the septic system and the water system. We had to pay to upgrade the electrical at that property. It's in the county, so it's rural. We've spent, probably 7 figures at this point between, more than that, between acquiring the property and fixing and improving that piece of real estate. So I'm happy to answer. We also employ 14 people at that location, and we have a strategy for the Scottsbluff residents specifically to continue to get that to grow and come over. But it's at about 50% now. We think we can grow that to maybe 60, 65% with our strategy of the play coming from Nebraska.
Any questions for the 307 folks? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bull.
Mr. Ridgway, educate me. If I lived in Nebraska and wanted to engage in gaming, what are my opportunities in Nebraska? Do you know?
So Nebraska just legalized HHR. It's more than that. They have actual racinos. So they permitted a number of racetracks in Nebraska, I think 5. Most of them are, all of them so far, either in central Nebraska to the east. So what they have is they have 5 racetracks. And what they did in Nebraska is they allowed those tracks to titrate up race days slowly. So I think they had to start with only 1 race day. But what they get is a full-blown Class 3 casino at the track itself. What? But they don't get anything off premise. So there's one in Grand Island, I think there's one in Ogallala, and then there's some over in Lincoln and Omaha area. There has been discussion about one in the Scottsbluff area. When I was doing some work on this to talk to the county commissioners there, they do not have a license. They haven't been on a recent agenda to try to construct or build a track in western Nebraska. So the best they have is skills games, which are legal in Nebraska. So if you want a game in Scottsbluff, unless you want to drive 2 or 3 hours east to one of these new racinos, or you want to drive to Deadwood, your best form of gaming is the local skills games in Scottsbluff proper.
So it kind of emphasizes that the market is dynamic, it's changing. And operators have to respond to that. You know, if you ever put a game online, have you ever had an occasion where you took it off the line? Does that ever make sense to do?
We have done that. We've gone up and down in different properties. And some of that has to do with, we have contractual agreements with certain vendors. Some vendors perform better than others. So I think there's a thought process about this industry that if you put a game on the floor, it'll make money. Like, that's not necessarily the case. There are, I think we have between 12 and 15 different game software vendors that we work with. And then, as you guys know, there are at least 3 math model providers, Paramax or Amtote, Ainsworth, and Exacta are the 3 big ones, but there's a couple of others too, Castle Hill, and I know there's another one floating around, but I can't think of it. So some people like different types of games, which I think we've talked about before, whether it's like the jungle-themed game or the monkey game or the fireworks game or whatever it may be. The way they play, there's reasons why some are more or less popular. Some will be in favor, some will be out of favor. You know, so the Buffalo games are super popular in some locations, and in others they're not. So, but then we all have certain contracts with vendors that require you to have so many of their machines on a floor for certain pricing or different kind of things like that. Or you may have certain handcuffs on you with what the different agreements are you have with vendors. So sometimes you may need more games on a floor just to satisfy those contractual agreements. You may pull some off because they aren't performing. You may want to lease some for a while and then decide to buy them based on how they perform. So absolutely, like our numbers at both Wyoming Downs and 307 change based on game performance, based on what you're seeing in the market. You know, whether they're broken, they also have, 5 to 7 year lifespans. You can't just put one game on a floor and have it sit there. You have to fix it. A screen might get broke, something might happen. We also have software updates that come through. We're working with the Gaming Commission all the time to make sure things operate the way they're supposed to. So there are times where you take 4 games offline or 8 games offline because you're working through a software update or a software change.
Chairman Cavillo, if I may add.
Certainly.
Commissioner Bull, also to answer your question, something earlier that Mr. Ridgway said, it's also why we titrate up to that maximum amount that we ask for and don't just put 80 machines on the floor right away. So you take the market, you start adding machines and you see how they do, and then you build the market, but that's also why, it doesn't happen all at once.
And the last thing I'll add is, so when we started with 307 in 2021, there were, I would say like a handful of vendors that were making these, and now there's a lot more selection. And as more vendors who manufacture Class 3 machines are migrating their product to HHR, you have more selection and it's more competitive from what the product is you can put on your floor. And so you want to make sure you've got flexibility to update or mix or change your floor as product availability changes or new themes change or market dynamics change.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else with any questions? Vice President Ritholler. Ruben?
Yeah, thank you. I had to find the unmute button. I guess my question would be, we just got done talking about what the select committee and legislators are worried about is the numbers of machines and they're not being used. So what kind of time frame, and I realize that I think I know the answer, but what kind of time frame would you be looking at to go from 70 to 150 machines if we was to okay this? I mean, what is the time frame, or is that unknown number?
Chairman Covello, Vice President Ritholler, I'd say, probably over the course of 2 years, we would roll them out. Because this property is rural, there's upgrades to the facility you need to make from an electrical perspective that can take time because we're dealing with a rural electric co-op. So when we had to upgrade power to the facility to go from 45 machines to 70 machines, that was a 6 to 9 month process just for them to get the right transformer to put in. And so I would say, it's probably over the course of 2 years for this facility that we would know for sure whether we'd go all the way up or whether we'd stop at 125 or 130. And then some of it depends on what happens in Nebraska too, because we're obviously taking a business risk. And if at some point they change their legislation and authorize another license and plop the racino in Scottsbluff, that would affect a lot of what's happening in Wyoming, including, probably what's happening in Cheyenne. So that also is something that's somewhat unpredictable, but I would say, 2 years is a reasonable time period for a property of this size. For a border property, just to get it constructed, and I'm not going to speak for Wyoming horse racing, but we're in the middle of constructing one south of Cheyenne. I mean, those take time to get permitted. You got to do the dirt work. You got to work with YDOT. You got to get power. And you're building a pretty significant facility from scratch. That takes some time. But for one of these properties that's more like 100 to 150 machines, you're going to know in 2 years, easy, where it sits and how it feels.
President Covello, could I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead and follow up.
I'm just going to state this. I don't know how else to do it. I'm just a country boy, but so what would be the proper place that we can stop angst of people saying there's too many machines permitted and not being used without curtailing the business end of it? So is a 2-year figure a good place to start? Would that cause angst on your side? I guess that's what I'm trying to grasp here. How, as a gaming commissioner, I can take and say, it's 2 years, 3 years, and you have to come back. I guess that's what I'm after. And how would you answer that question? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Chairman Covello, Vice President Ritholler, you guys are going to let me have some fun today because I have the answers to all these questions. So let me just talk about where 307 sits right now. Because I have this right in front of me. In just a second. Oops. So just speaking for 307, our Blackmore property is permitted for 81 machines. We have 77. Casper Center Street's permitted for 86. We have 71. Casper Poplar's permitted for 57. We have 57. Cheyenne Pershing's permitted for 200, we have 183. Cheyenne Ridge Road, which is the newest 307 property, is permitted for 125, it has 122. The Douglas property's permitted for 50, it has 50. Gillette's permitted for 100, it has 72. Laramie's permitted for 80, which we just opened in February, it has 70. Rawlins is permitted for 89, it has 65. And we will be adding some to that shortly. Riverton is permitted for 58, it has 45. Rock Springs is permitted for 107, it has 100. Sheridan's permitted for 86, it has 65. Torrington's permitted for 70 and it has 70. Green River is the only property we have that's not open. It's been under construction. It's a significant construction project of an old movie theater. It'll be open before year end. It's permitted for 125 and it will have somewhere between 100 or 125. So just off the top of your head, like 307 doesn't have this big disparity in machines. I think and I testified about this to the legislature, you know, the big disparity in machines is for these border sites. So like at Wyoming Downs, we're permitted for 600 at a border site and there's 0 out. Well, if you have, you know, 1,200 machines in operation or something off the top of my head, and you have 600 that you haven't used, that looks like a lot that you're missing, but it's a significant construction project that throws the numbers off. I think the same thing applies to some of the other border projects. You know, Wyoming Downs has a couple properties that have some extra room, and we can talk about those. And I've spoken to Director Laramendi about those properties before, but there's also some contractual reasons for those disparities, which we can, you know, work through with the commission. To directly answer your question, I think there's a misnomer about this machines issue. My sense is it's the amount of properties and sort of the feel that people are maybe upset about or maybe not upset about with how much of this there is. But I mean, I can't, you know, we have a study that the legislature paid for, and I think this commission's done a pretty good job of trying to comply with that study and reviewing these properties, and Nick goes through the data. I mean, so when you look at this particular property, it conforms with what the study's talking about. There's only one in Goshen County. We have all kinds of local restrictions on it. We also have a limited time period from that county before we have to renew. I can't remember if it was a 5-year or 3-year. So we're gonna have to go back in front of them within the first 3 or 5 years of it being open and get a reapproval or renewal for that location anyway. So, you know, you have some protection there. I would say for this property, if there was a reason why the commission wanted to say, you know, we're going to re-review in 2 years whether you've used them or not used them, and then we can revisit it, I don't have an issue with that. I don't know where that sits in the permit or where you would put that caveat, but I don't think our organization has an issue with a restriction like that if the commission wants to say, we'll look at it again in 2 years to see if it works or doesn't work. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question. I do think some of the discussion about the machine count itself is a little misguided, and more of it's about, you know, the total amount of properties and what do we want Wyoming to feel like. And, you know, the market conditions are pushing to, you know, some consolidation in larger facilities, and these smaller facilities aren't performing maybe like they were, which you can see in the data. So the market participants that exist right now, I believe, are working through that process and dealing with those. If you look at the types of properties that are in these communities now and the types of properties that are being opened versus what there was 5 years ago, it's night and day. And so I know there's a lot of talk about those kinds of things. But, you know, from the business's perspective, I think the market participants that exist right now are working hard to make sure, you know, we're following the study and we're, you know, doing right by the state and our communities.
Commissioner Schiffer.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Ridgway, I just kind of had a concern with the layout of this place. You know, it looks to me like it was designed for a lot less machines. Now you kind of got this sweatshop look to it. And a kitchen, huge kitchen, and no place for people to eat if they choose to take a break and engage in, you know, eating or something. So I wondered if you could address the layout. I mean, maybe it just looks more crowded than it is. I don't know, but could you address that, please?
Chairman Covello, Commissioner Schiffer. So that layout's not, it wasn't ideal. That shows how the machines would fit in the square footage. the way that building's structured is it's like 3 buildings kind of slapped together over time. And so there's some breakup of the facility, but we have been working with an architect to actually get an as-built of that property. We didn't want to lose time on the project, so we took the square footage and showed how they would lay out. But the way that property works, there's a bar that's in there, there's space for people to sit and eat. We don't run a full kitchen at that property anymore. And I spoke to the county commissioners about that. It was very difficult to have staff. The restaurant itself was underwater. So we've moved to this model of more quick service food like Starbucks, where, you know, you have this preset menu of 10 items and you can get, you know, chicken strips or a hamburger or French fries or whatever it is. And the teller staff can handle that. So there is space at a pretty large bar simulcast area. There's at least, I think, 15 chairs that people can sit at there, and there's some other spaces in it. So to be candid, like that drawing doesn't necessarily totally represent how the flow of the space would work, but we just wanted to show that we could physically fit 150 in the property if we needed to explain that it's not like we're asking for 200 machines and the space can only fit 50. The reality is if we went to 150, it's possible we maybe would want to add a smoking patio on one side and do an addition to the side of the building, much like what Wyoming Downs did in Sheridan, where they added on to the building a little bit to make some room. But we didn't want to have to make a decision about whether we were going to do that or not today. We thought the data supported 150 machines given how many people were coming from Nebraska. And so we did that design mostly to show that we could actually physically fit 150 in the space, but it won't look and feel quite like what that drawing is, because that drawing's a little Spartan.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
President Cavello, if I may, real quick.
Certainly, Director Larramendi.
Just to Mr. Ridgway's point, I will tell you that he's accurate, at least as far as the office goes. The vast majority of complaints that we hear of isn't the number of terminals per se, it's the number of physical locations. A lot of the people that I've talked to, they could care less if it is one location with 6,000 machines in it. What they don't like is the fact that there is a location on every corner, or it appears that there's a location on every corner. And I just wanted to clarify, because I don't know, maybe I misspoke, or maybe I want to make sure that the operators and the commission understands that what I was not saying that this is a blanket. So when we renew these, if they're not in use, that we're just they should be stripped. That's not what my intention was. What my intention behind this is just to ensure that the operators are communicating with you all as to why there is that discrepancy, and if it's a justifiable reason and you all feel that that makes sense. To Mr. Ridgway's point, these build-outs take time. And he's correct that the big number of the disparity right now, we have 2,600 terminals that are not in use for multi-million-dollar properties that are being constructed. And that makes perfect sense in my mind. There is a few other ones, though, that I would say might be questionable, that machines haven't been used in 3-4 years, and it doesn't appear that there's ever a reason for those to be used. But if they can bring that to you and explain why they need those in their basket, then that's up to you. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just saying, you know, a blanket that we should just remove those by all means. And then to Vice President Rithaller's point, as far as like putting caveats as far as the times for these, I think it is important to remember that every time they renew, whether it's a 1-year permit or a 3-year permit, you all can reconsider that application. So at max right now, let's say at max, Wyoming Downs is on a 3-year permit. In 3 years, you can revisit their permits to see where it's gone in 3 years. If they're on a 1-year permit, you can redo it every year. So I don't know if you necessarily would have to write something into it that says, you know, we're going to review this in a year. When they renew, we can look at it, the big picture. So.
Anyone else? This is an action item. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we approve, excuse me, item number 7, the request for the terminal addition to the Torrington OTB by 307.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Now it's time for discussion. Commissioners, you're first. Any further discussion with regards to this request? Public? Anything from the public? Are there any hands raised online? Seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, 307. Now we're going to jump back to number 6, Cowboy Racing. Will?
Good morning. William Edwards, Cowboy Racing, LLC, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Thank you for your patience earlier. My timing couldn't have been worse. I'll be brief. I just wanted to come and give you an update about what we got going on in Cheyenne. For starters, since we've last met, we've executed our agreement with the electrical company, the Rural Electrical Association. That's underway. And so we can check that box. That's exciting. So a couple safety issues. For one, I gave you some pictures. On September 10th, we had the opportunity to give some of the legislators a little tour, and they got to see the progress. For those of you who want to come see the track, it's moving along really great, and it's exciting. And so because you haven't had a chance to see it, I wanted to bring a couple pictures. The man in the orange shirt there is Robin Stroud, and 30 years ago, he's put up rails all over the country. He's put up Churchill Downs rail. He just got back from Belmont when he came to Cheyenne. And 30 years ago, he put up the rail at Golden Gate Fields in San Francisco. And so kind of as a treat, we got him to come in and help us start placing the rail in the rails. Same rail he put up 30 years ago. He came and helped us put it up at its new home in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So we have a full safety rail up. As we sit today, it is 96% up without the gates in it yet. But, next week, pending ordering of some replacement parts, we should have a fully complete, full safety rail installed. And there's a picture of it with the shielding down the front stretch. That was taken, I think, week before last. And there's Robin. Proud to be in Wyoming. I think he had a good time. He actually celebrated his 75th birthday when he was with us, so that was exciting. The other thing regarding safety is I gave you guys a preliminary report that we put together. We plan on doing a much more finalized report once the cushion is being fully placed. We're placing the cushion, we're mixing material right now. But this report is a preliminary study. I don't know if you guys have a copy of it. You do, wonderful. As you look through it, I don't want to go into too much detail, but as you look through it, I want you to pay attention to page 6. Page 6 shows the upper and lower bounds, and working with Dennis Moore and Dr. McPeterson in Kentucky, they created the specifications for ultimate safe track. It's a standard of excellence in the industry. The upper bound, the yellow upper bound is dashed line is the upper limits, and the lower blue dashed line is the lower limits. And our track study is the solid green line. And so we fit, we're pleased to see that we fit right in the middle of the standards of excellence for the industry for the track and the cushion. And so that report is available. If you guys have any questions, feel free to follow up and email me or whatever. There will be a final report once the cushion is placed, but that's something that's very exciting. Outside of that, I don't have much to add other than I wanted to kind of supplement Mr. Ridgway's testimony. September 20th, Gehring Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit for a track in Scottsbluff. I don't know exactly where they are at the preliminary process. I think this is just the tip of the starting of the process to kind of see. I know the state of Nebraska is doing a market study, And whatever, that the state is ordering a market study. So they are studying their opportunity. No doubt it's probably because of the activity they're seeing in Wyoming. So I think imitation is the best form of flattery. So we'll see how that turns out. But that's the status on that from what I know. With that, I'll just stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Are there any questions for Will? Yes, Commissioner Bull.
Mr. Edward, when were you able to get the contract for the electricity executed?
The week before last, it took a while.
Relatively.
Yes.
Is there an estimate as to when electricity will be to the property?
I have not received a definitive estimate. I will tell you, since last time we met, we requested an updated form. It took some time to get that done. There was an issue about reimbursement being in that agreement. These things unfortunately take longer than you'd like them to, but it has been executed.
Okay. You've got a nice fall coming here. Finally, you have a contract for electricity. Hopefully, you guys won't take a vacation. Hopefully, you'll use this time to move the project along. But anyway, that's all I've got to ask, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission.
All right, moving along. Item number 8, Wyoming Downs LLC. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on 2025 live race season.
President Cavella, item 8A, an update from Wyoming Downs on their 2025 live race season.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, Frank Lamb, General Manager, Wyoming Downs. I'm joined by Wyatt Didrikson, Assistant General Manager at Wyoming Downs. We had a pretty good race meet. We're pretty excited about some of the numbers we came up with. We broke, as far as I can figure, going back in time, we broke every record that we had except for one, which was the total handle on race day, and we only missed that by 5,000. So a quick overview, the average daily betting was 162,382. Compare that with last year, 105,000. That's an increase of 53% of average daily betting. Wagering totaled 2.7 million for 18 days of racing versus 2.1 million for 20 days last year. Purses earned by both quarter horses and thoroughbreds totaled 2.62 million. The average field size, which is a big deal to me and people in racing, the average field size was 9.01 for quarter horses and 8.69 for thoroughbreds. There's a lot of reasons for this, and some of them were, of course, the closing of Northern California racing, which was terrible, but we benefited from that. No racing in Colorado during the summer. They're racing there now, but they weren't racing when we were racing. No summer racing in Arizona, and then Ruidoso Downs going to straight quarter horse racing and then getting wiped out by a flood. So we were in a pretty good position to attract horses. And fortunately, the ownership group, Ron and Mark, allowed us to build one barn last fall, and then when we acquired the additional stalls from Northern California, we built 3 barns before the race meet started this spring. So we had an additional 200 stalls to accommodate horses, but yet we still had to turn away 500 horses. Wow. It was just a lot of demand for people wanting to come to Wyoming Downs. We're looking to add to that, and I'm going to let Wyatt kind of tell you what our plans are for next year. You know, back to that one record we didn't break, and I need to get with Nick on this to see if any of the records with the commission are still intact from back in 1986 or 7, because I was working as a steward at Wyoming Downs, and I remember handling $260,000 on a Memorial Day. And we handled $255,000 one day this year. So we were just short of breaking the record that only exists in my mind right now, unless we can find that. But you know, the other thing that we added this year that I think was just a super addition was the Durlock safety rail. We had at least, well, I witnessed 2 horses go through that rail at the end of the chute. If that would have been the steel rail that was there before, those horses would have been euthanized, or maybe not even had to be euthanized. It was that bad. They just went right through it. But so right there, just, I mean, it was worth every penny of putting that rail up. And we're real pleased with that. And of course, the job that Steve Wood did on the track with all that equipment that we got from California, and you guys, you've seen that before, it made all the difference in the world. And we couldn't be more pleased with how that turned out. So with that, I'll let Wyatt kind of update you on some of the things we're planning for next year.
Wyatt Didrikson, Wyoming Downs. To continue off what Frank is saying, when we built those additional 4 barns to accommodate the season that we had, our secured area is now completely at capacity. There's no room to build more barns. So what we're doing is we're now extending our secured area so that we can build an additional 5 barns, which will get us, currently we're sitting at 914 stalls, and this will put us to a little over 1,100 stalls for the next season. The biggest advantage of this is our haul-in stalls have historically been in the middle or the back of the barn area. So during training, getting horses in and out that are just hauling up to Wyoming to get works from Utah or Idaho, it can get a little clustered with that. So the new barns we're building will have the hauling guys right there at the front, which will also improve safety measures and not having trucks and trailers in the backside that could have potential accidents. Along with that, we're making other facility upgrades. We haven't had them all finalized, but from the horsemen to the public, the 2025 season is just the beginning of what we plan on expanding and growing Wyoming Downs into being.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add one more thing that I overlooked. We had, of course, we raced quarter horses and thoroughbreds, and I just want you to know the totals on that. Of the races we ran thoroughbreds ran 74 races, and the quarter horses ran 94 races. So, and the thoroughbred purses were $967,000. The quarter horse purses were $1.193 million. Those are, I think, impressive stats, you know, and we're proud of the program that we're putting on. The one other thing that I didn't mention was the Friday racing experiment, and that's what it was an experiment, and we were pretty nervous, or at least I was, about how that would turn out. And we raced every Friday in July, and the first Friday was July 4th, so we knew that would be okay. The next Friday, though, we had around 500 people show up, which was okay. But we handled almost $100,000. So, and we just kept building from that. And the last Friday, we did handle $100,000. So we've found that we can build on that, and we're going to. So we're looking at all options for next year as far as that goes. But it's pretty exciting, and we're going to need to. Racing is growing at such a rate that we have to be we have to get ahead of it, we have to be thinking ahead. And that's why, as Wyatt mentioned, we're building more stalls, we're building more barns. We've got to accommodate more horses. And with that, though, we have to run more days during the week, or those horses are just going to sit in the barns. So the Friday racing experiment was a success, and I appreciate the commission allowing us to try that. And we were pretty excited about the future of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We stand for questions.
Any questions for the folks from Wyoming Downs? Commissioner Schiffer?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I got some feedback, concerns about the number of Wyoming-bred races that were offered or run. That the concern was that they weren't in compliance with the statute and the regs. And then also I was going to question you about the Horsemen's Group, the status of that, if there's been any change that you know of. We never seem to see a representative from that group, but so we're kind of relying on you to tell us. And, you know, I don't know, I think we're going to discuss some of this later about the Wyoming bred races, so I don't know if we want to deal with it here, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it now, or to defer it if you want to defer it to item number, I believe it's 11B. So, thank you.
Mr. President, Commissioner Schiffer, let's see, I guess I'll start with the question about the Horsemen's Group, if that's all right. I know that the Wyoming HPPA and the Horsemen had a meeting at the track. I think it was the last weekend, excuse me, and they tell me, I wasn't there, they tell me there were 70 people there at the meeting, and they voted to more or less reorganize the Wyoming HPPA and work with the National HPPA to be recognized by them and pay their dues and get involved with the National HPPA. And I've had a couple of conversations with the Horsemen's representative, which Chris, and and he has informed me that they are in conversation with the National. Everything is on go. I know they've had a couple more meetings since then, Zoom meetings though, but I know they had that one in-person meeting while they were there at the track. And as far as I know, they have a board and are moving forward with everything they're doing.
Can I do a follow-up?
Sure.
So would Wyoming Downs management, would they have any objection to another group coming in and trying to determine if who has the majority of the horsemen in their basket versus the Wyoming HPVA basket? Would you cooperate with such a move? I mean, I'm getting feedback that there's another group that wants to be involved in that, to be the representative as to negotiate with Wyoming Downs. And I just want your assurance that you will cooperate with such a move.
Mr. President, Commissioner Schiffer, well, we will go by the rule and the law, and it addresses that. So if there's a group that represents the majority of the horsemen as determined by the commission, that's what we go by, is the rules and the law. So we really don't have a role in that, I don't think. But as far as, if they want to, I don't know what the right word is, if they want to be the representative, I guess, and and they follow the rule and the law, then yeah.
Well, again, I guess the follow-up question is, if such a group wants to come in, are you going to allow them access and cooperate with them to be on the track for them to determine if they have licensed people who are going to be in their camp versus a different camp? So this is a question if management's going to cooperate to allow that group to come in and see if they are the majority, so that they can present it to the commission to determine who is the group that will represent the horsemen at Wyoming Downs.
Chairman Covello, Commissioner Schiffer, I think the answer is yes, that Wyoming Downs management's committed to work with all stakeholders, as Mr. Lamb said, in accordance with the law and the rules of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. The existing ownership group has extensive experience working with different horsemen's groups in Kentucky. So it's not their first rodeo of when you start to have a good, big, strong meet like Wyoming Downs, there's a lot of different people that want to be in control or have a say, and that requires an experienced management team to juggle all stakeholders appropriately. If there are issues with the way that's being done, we're happy to address those. But at the same time, the organization has existing contractual agreements that create complexity around the flexibility that the management group has related to how it juggles all those stakeholders. So it's a balance between existing contractual relationships and what the rules and the statutes require, along with, what's good for the meet itself. So, if there are issues and we need to continue to have discussions during the off season, I know the management team and ownership has engaged in discussions with a bunch of the different stakeholders here in Wyoming about how to make that meet better.
Thank you. Appreciate your clear answer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Schiffer, your other question concerning the Wyoming bred races. We ran 33 Wyoming bred quarter horse races in 18 days of racing. So just a little shy of averaging 2 a day. There was one day where we ran 10 Wyoming bred races in one day. That was, of course, the Wyoming bred futurity trials. On the thoroughbred side, we had 4 Wyoming bred races, and that might sound like not very many, unless you've been around this for a while. For the first 30 years that I was involved in Wyoming racing, we were unable to fill a thoroughbred or actually an overnight quarter horse Wyoming bred race in that entire time for 30 years, and a little over 30 years. And the only Wyoming bred quarter horse races we could fill during that time were the futurity trials and futurity. So we had never filled a Wyoming bred thoroughbred race, never filled a Wyoming bred thoroughbred race in Wyoming until 2 years ago. So now we've had 4 this year at Wyoming Downs, and I know they've had more at 307, excuse me, and also at Wyoming horse racing. So that it's growing as the breeding business picks up. It's an area of growth that we're proud of, especially well, all of it. We're proud of all of it. It's just amazing that we've got that much participation with Wyoming breds, and the investment I'm seeing people make in the Wyoming bred program is just astounding. So I see that as something that you're going to see continue to grow. And I can see a time, and I've said this for the last several years, I can see a time where half of our races are going to end up being Wyoming bred. It's just it's heading that direction, and it should. So, but it's growing on its own as the industry catches up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else for any questions? Yes, Commissioner Bolt.
A couple years ago, the big issue in front of this commission were horse fatalities. We enacted rules which we hoped addressed the situation. So I was just wondering, how did it go this year in terms of horse fatalities? What did you see?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bowl, I'm glad you asked that question because I had it in my notes to mention it. We had two. We had two thoroughbred fatalities. And no quarter horse fatalities. So
We ran more horses this year.
a lot more horses, a lot more. You know, as I mentioned in our starters per race, I mean, it's just, those are some of the best numbers in the country.
Yeah.
For a track that has a 10-horse starting gate to average 9 starters per race. You know, it's just, I haven't really looked into it. Last year, we did. We were 4th last year, so we must be up there a little higher than that now.
Thank you,
4th.
Frank.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? You have anything else you want to add?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Wyoming Horse Racing LLC, discussion, consideration, and action on the following matter of the Green River OTB transfer to new address.
President Covello, the next item is a request from Wyoming Horse Racing requesting to move their current Green River operations to a new address. Their current operations is at 110 Uinta Drive, and they want to move it to 420 Uinta Drive, a couple blocks down the road. This request does not include the request for any additional terminals. This literally is picking up a building or the operation of building and moving it down the street to a newer, nicer facility. So since there's no real changes in numbers or anything, you'll see in the packet, it's pretty limited. They're operating under the same county resolution. They also supplied a letter of support from the city of Green River. This one's pretty straightforward, but I'd answer any questions if you have any on this.
Any questions for Nick?
I don't have questions, but I will make a motion to approve the Wyoming Horse Racing Green River address transfer.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? We have a motion and a second. Now's the time for discussion. Commissioners, do you have any discussion? Public, including you guys, would you like to say something?
Good morning, President Covello and Commissioners. This is, as Nick Laramendi said, this is a simple move up the street, just a few blocks. The purpose for the move really is it's a better location. It's set way back from the street compared to our current location. It's our neighbors in that new spot is a Harley Davidson shop and a gym, so it's better suited for an OTB in that location. The space is 7,500 square feet. It's going to allow us to do more space for moving the games around, make it more convenient. And we're going to expand the bar area, have some amenities with that bar and the space. And just all in all, it's a better guest experience, which is really what we want to try to accomplish with the entertainment component of HHR. So that's pretty much it in terms of reason.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry. I didn't know whether you.
go ahead.
No, I didn't actually. I was going to say there's not much more I can add. Nick Hughes, Wyoming Horse
Did you
Racing.
go through an approval process with the city?
Yes, we did. We have a letter of support from the city and then also from the county, Sweetwater County. We have a resolution approving it. They were all very much in favor of the move.
So what process did you go through with the city?
We attended city council meetings.
Just the city council?
2 meetings with the council, so it was open to the public.
Their planning and zoning process?
We didn't have to go through the zoning process, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
President Cavello, if I may, I should have done this probably sooner. I think we need to make sure that we understand that if this is approved, the existing approval for the other location, once this location is open, that approval goes away and that's no longer a permitted location. So we can just change addresses and then take the other one off the books.
Okay, now that we're at that discussion point, we've done the commissioners. Anyone from the public have anything they'd like to say? Anybody with any hands raised online?
No, sir.
Hearing nothing, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
President Cavello, do you want to take maybe 5-6 minutes before we move to the
Yes,
last
before we move
items?
to item 11, we'll take a break. It's 9:57. We'll start back up at 10:15.
Hey, Dan, you're gonna have
Okay, everyone, if you'd take your seats, please, let's get started.
When I talk to the local officials, they don't care about the number of machines,
Nick, you want to take roll, please?
number of locations. Yeah, 100 or 1,000 machines.
President Covello.
Present.
Commissioner Torgerson is still absent. Commissioner Bull. Commissioner Schiffer.
Here.
Commissioner Broussard.
Present.
Vice President Rithaller.
Present.
Commissioner Cura.
Here.
Commissioner Francisco.
Here.
Commissioner Wildcat is still absent. Senator Kolb is still online.
Present.
Representative Davis. Here. And Governor's Liaison, Mr. Lubinaugh, is also absent. President Covello, everybody is returned.
Very good. We have a quorum, so we'll continue. Item number 11, agenda request from the public. 11A, rodeo industry, rodeo definitions. Eric Nelson.
President Covello, while Mr. Nelson's coming up to the table to speak, I forgot something in the director's report, so this is going to be a little out. I just wanted to let you know, because it's kind of exciting, 2 of our folks are actually currently in Pennsylvania at the Parks Racetrack, taking part in a horse racing integrity strike team. So they're working the grounds of Parks Racing for the Pennsylvania Derby, the $1 million race this weekend. So we were invited to do that. We're going to start sending our field folks out to racetracks across the nation to take part in these. It's a great learning experience to see how other tracks are doing things that they can bring that stuff back. I forgot to mention that earlier, so my apologies.
Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. Nelson.
Chairman, thank you for having me here today. My right is Carlene Gutierrez. She does our design, our engineering. On a personal level, I've lived with her for years. She's my older sister, and so don't take that the wrong way. But anyway,
Mr. President.
with us, Rosendo Gutierrez, he's our architect and design. Cliff McCarley, security guard and golfer, and Brett Lynch. And so we got a team of rodeo folks here. What we hope to do is give you a little presentation, a little update on rodeo, where we're at and what we're doing, and the history of that a little bit, and myself involved in it. And then I'd like to yield to questions and answers and look for your assistance. I can't imagine being over 5 or 10 minutes on the little presentation we have. We've asked the director to allow us to show some slides so you can understand that. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and present kind of what we have in mind. But first, I'll go over a little bit of history. In 1998, I acquired Wyoming Downs. And then, of course, in May 17, 2024, I sold the facility to Mark and Ron. And of course, they're what I call great operators, big time. In fact, I'm not sure if you knew that Mr. Winchell has had, I believe, 14 times he's been in the Kentucky Derby. So he's had some big horses through the years. Okay. Excuse me on that. Again, it's Eric Nelson with Frontier Rodeo, sir. What I'm not here to do is I'm not here on HR and I'm not here on horse racing. I have over 3 years remaining on a non-compete development agreement, and I'm not interested in the horse racing side of things or the HR at this time. So I want to make sure that's clear. I want to make sure I'm representing, I have a special carve out in my contract that allows me to do rodeo. It allows me to do stadiums and allows me to do development. And that's kind of what I do. Is my history, of course, is bankruptcies and foreclosures. I'm a real estate developer in the world, but I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I built 3 hotels in Mississippi, the Fitzgerald's Las Vegas Casino and the Silver Slipper Casino on the coast. I've sold out of those interests here. My main focus now is 2 parcels of property that were, if you take a look at the Wyoming Gaming Expansion Study, they actually state that the place for growth in in rodeo and some of the other areas are going to be on the east and the west borders. And I have built 3 casinos on all border states in Mississippi there. And so I enjoy doing that. And so I bought the properties here more for the rodeo aspect of it. And I'd like to tell you kind of where we're at in that process, and then how we've been affected by the rules and regs and the definitions and where we were last year. I'll yield part of that time to Nick so he can better explain it, because it's preventing us to move forward with some rodeo events, and that's what I'd like to take a look at. But currently, we have, and Nick, could I have you go to the next picture there? Okay, so this is the demographics. When I'm doing the feasibility studies, I depend on myself, and I depended on the Wyoming gaming study. The Arapahoes, they showed me a gaming study, basically said the same thing. And then I purchased, or I had done 2 case studies and feasibility studies on the east and west as far as the demographics go. So the demographics will show you about 2.6 million people in the Salt Lake Valley that would be closer to the Evanston facility for rodeo. You'd have approximately 1 million people in the Fort Collins market for a rodeo facility at my east location. The west location I own outright, 150 acres there, and we plan on building something very grand, but it takes me a long time to move along on some of these projects there. One of my projects, unrelated, is I've got 2,000 feet of beachfront property in Mississippi right next to the Silver Slipper Casino to do about 1,500 high-rise facilities there. It's going to take me another 10 years, if I'm still alive, to build that facility out. But, you know, it's operating RV park, the casino's next door to it. And so I really enjoy the master plans. Carlene and Rosendo, they are our master plans. They've done multiple master plans with developments. And in addition to this, before on a side note, since I'm a fast talker and I'm a real estate auctioneer, just so you know, so I can talk kind of fast sometimes, real fast to the ladies, but no. But anyhow, on the note side, on a good side with Wyoming Downs, is you heard they had 500 extra horses that they had to turn around. We're proposing a master plan on 200 acres that I own north of the property of Wyoming Downs to do 80 barnuminium lots from 2 to 3 to 4 acres where people can actually buy land out there. We'll be annexed into Bear River, and if we're working with Wyoming Downs, hopefully it'll be a unique opportunity to bring in some real good development into that area there. Now, with that being said, in 2020, Mark Gordon signed legislation that allowed parimutuel racing on rodeo. So he directed the commission to set rules and regs, and we've been working on that. Of course, in 2024, when I was selling, I slowed down everything, and I reserved the opportunity to own the 2 parcels of property, and I reserved the carve out to do rodeo, because that's where I really enjoy the rodeo parts of it. The national finals, we've sponsored rodeo folks in that facility for years, and I would invite everybody from the commission to come to the National Final Rodeo. Come to the governor's breakfast and see the amount of power that rodeo can bring to you. So currently, where we're at is the vision's there. We believe we have 2 of the best sites. One's 150 acres in Evanston and 248 acres outside of Cheyenne. Both of them on the first exits coming out of or going into those communities there. We have phone wagering. We can do phone wagering you can sit in the stadium and actually wager on rodeo events the way we've designed it. We have exclusive rights for our broadcasting. We have over 100 international sites that we can send out rodeo parimutuel wagering to. You can't do parimutuel wagering on rodeo in the United States except for Wyoming if we can get licensed or our participants can get licensed. We have the capital, we have major sponsors. These locations, though, are just not for rodeo. We're going to have 2 of the largest truck stop facilities there. We'll have hotels, we'll have motels. We've been working closely with the county and the city in Evanston. We have the design and architect And of course, we had Mark Gordon sign a critical legislation that allowed us to do this in 2020. What we do not have is the opportunity to do background checks through the FBI. And that has become an issue here. And the director has shared with me the FBI letter that requires us to go that direction there. And maybe if I could, Nick, could you kind of give the commission an update on the where we're at with definitions per the FBI? So we're legal in the state, but we can't get the participants license unless we go back to legislations, which we're prepared to do next year if it's necessary. Now, with that being said, before I turn it back over to Nick, we did get through the Senate committee. We got to the floor and got passed. We got into the House and got out of committee, but we ran out of time and we did not get on the floor last year. Nick, where are we at with the definitions and how we're approaching this currently?
Mr. President, so under Title 11, 1125-104F actually says that each permittee, licensee, and current or prospective employee, volunteer, and contract employee of a permittee or licensee, and each person who has access to restricted areas or animals housed on a permitted event ground for horse racing or for parimutuel activities shall be licensed by the commission. So Wyoming state law requires that any participant in a parimutuel event, whether it be flat track horse racing, rodeo, roping, chuck wagon, there's a few of them, is required to be licensed by our office. Part of the statute also says that in order to be licensed by our office, they shall submit to criminal history background checks. And then it also references Title VII in Wyoming statute, which says that they have to submit to a state and national background check. If you'll remember, it's something that we worked on for actually several years with the parimutuel portion of this. The federal government, specifically CJIS division of the FBI, said that our statutes were too broad, and we had to work on amendments to identify every classification of person that the commission licenses. So we went through that several times, and now when you look at Title 11, I think it's 1125-104 further down, it actually identifies and defines every applicant that we license. This was really for flat track horse racing. As Mr. Nelson said, last year there was a bill that made it through the Senate that added the definition of like a rodeo contestant, a rodeo stock contractor, and it actually, I think it just amended the definition of a groom to capture some of those other people that didn't make it through the House side. So currently, in order for the commission to license rodeo event participants, stock contractors, it's going to require a statutory change to add those into the definitions portion of this, this statute before we can issue those licenses, which is required for us to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I would like to show to the state and to this commission here, if you take a look, of course, with the potential of that Salt Lake Valley in itself, the amount of tourism coming over. At one time, 95% of the folks that showed up at Wyoming Downs came from the Salt Lake Valley in those areas. It's similar, if we go to the next one, it's the drive time to the East Project going into Cheyenne. There's over 1 million people that actually have a shorter drive time than to the Black Hawk facility there. So these two assets here, they're not mine, they're the state of Wyoming's. They are the ones that can benefit from the tourism, the tax dollars, and the jobs. And there's nothing better than having your neighbor give you some money, as we all know, and then go back home. And so these are some really good opportunities. Nick, could you go to the next slide? So these are some of the facilities that would be built on the facilities itself. So it's not going to be small class, this is high class in some of these areas that we're going to be building. Next slide. Not only are we going to have the rodeo side of it, and let's go to the next slide there. We'll have some major productions. As we all know, Frontier Days puts on concerts 10 days of the year, and they bring them in from Colorado. Well, you can imagine if we have entertainment outside of the Salt Lake Valley area and outside of course, Fort Collins area. So we plan year-round at the stadium, not only for rodeo, but these facilities here. Interesting note, let's go to the next one there. This is the facility that comes in from the Salt Lake Valley. You can see the size of the rodeo facility that's enclosed, and it also has an outdoor facility if the weather's right that you could participate in. And so the design is there. There could be additional adult entertainment out there at some point in time, but we envision hotels, motels, and I don't want to do anything cheap. I want to make sure we do high quality. So sometimes you have to take your time to see how the market shakes out a little bit in some of these areas there. But it kind of gives you the opportunity for Wyoming to participate on a major level in rodeo because of the broadcasting, the history that we have with it. In fact, in 2008, we put on an event, the Hyde Merit was the association, and we did one in Laramie where we had steer roping. We were the licensee, and we had United Tote under our direction. We took bets and wagering where they used our tote board, and we put on a steer roping, and it went perfect. All the tote equipment worked, all the betting went well. At that time there, I knew this is where I wanted to be. Unfortunately, that was almost 15 or 16 years ago. But now we're at that point where things have matured into the market. So I'm here to ask for, to get suggestions, to have questions on where we're at and where we're going with the different facilities. And but the main thing is to get a platform that we're here and we're going to try to move forward with some exciting things on the border of rodeo side of it. Yield myself to questions if you had any, Mr. Chairman.
I got quite a few. When you're looking at doing parimutuel on rodeo, let's talk about what are your focus be on what events?
Well, let's say all events, basically. There's ways to do it. You want to protect the integrity of the facility itself, but just like barrel racing is, a big opportunity to have a timed event. So that would be one of the events there. Steer roping would be another one. It may be where you have bull riding, where the bull rider has to stay on and you have 10 bulls in there and you pick the top 3 riders to stay on. Not necessarily with the scores, but you can do numbers and move the numbers to make sure that you're working with numbers so the participants can have a fair alliance to that. Now, those rules and regs, those were with our association, and we make sure that the associations, Frontier Rodeo Associations, are following our guidelines. And then, of course, we're under the direction and the oversight of the Gaming Commission.
Okay, so for example, you're going to have team roping. And they're going to have to join your association in order to rope. What kind of numbers are you anticipating? Because I've seen team ropings, obviously in barrel racings, hundreds and hundreds of participants. Are you going to take those people, you're going to break them up into drafts of people that you'll bet on? Are you going to bet on the whole group? What's your projected, how are you going to do that? There's a lot of moving pieces here.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask you. There's ways to go slow and to make sure that it works right and correctly. But you're going to have teams, like for instance, we wouldn't only take Frontier Rodeo Association at our facility. You may have the PRCA. They want to bring in their rules and their regs and how their contestants on how to do it. Where my expertise comes in is working with the tote company and the economics of the way the wager works, because it's parimutuel wagering, of course, to make sure that the wagering side of it is correct. And so I think some of the questions haven't been answered, and I think it's very simple to say, all right, barrel racing, this is how that's going to happen. Steer roping, this is how it's going to happen. Some of the other events, we'll get there once we know we have the licensing process in place. I'm not sure if I answered your question, though, but.
Okay, and one more thing. You mentioned PRCA, but they're going to have to be members of your association. Not to say they couldn't belong to both, but you can't have a PRCA contractor and work under PRCA rules. They're going to have to work under commission rules. Understood?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. They're going to have they can rent the facility from us, and so they would be responsible for their association to get licensed in Wyoming to put on that event at the facilities that we own. Our association would be just one of maybe multiple associations that are doing special events at the facilities. So they would have to change their bylaws if they needed to make some adjustments to it. That would be their business, and we would welcome it in there. Unlike the horse racing industry, where the associations are just one association that's in there, we'll have multiple associations that would be involved at the facility itself.
And parimutuel wagering on all?
Not all, but the majority of the events would have to be approved by this commission on what we are going to participate in on the wagering part of it. Now, we're going to have some events that are not going to participate in parimutuel wagering. We'll probably have some high school rodeo, college rodeo, and things like that. And that's going to be a different different game at that time. One of the other areas that we would like to work with, and this is the request I would have, is that the commission works with us in allowing us to get a license, getting some of the things moving forward, subject to getting the background checks worked out. The other area that I think is needed is separating rodeo from live horse racing. They are two different sports. They're like basketball and football. They need to be separated because there are probably going to be additional things that we note that will require legislative changes or rule changes that should not involve or should clog up the horse racing industry whatsoever. I don't want to compete with the horse racing side of it. I don't want to compete with the HR side of it. We want to do rodeo, and that's what we want to focus on. We feel we have a worldwide network all set up. We have the betting program set up. It's just getting through. The state has approved, the rodeo side of it. The governor signed the bill, and 4 years later, we're still trying to work through how to get through the background checks, whether that's the FBI or whatever organization. We have to make sure that we satisfy those areas.
President Covello, if I may, real quickly. So looking back, I'm just looking back on some of the previous discussions that we've had. When the commission was considering drafting the rules for rodeo, it was its own chapter to keep it separate from racing. So it would be done as its own chapter. In fact, I think the title of the chapter was Professional Rodeo Events, just to make sure that you understand that it would be a separate chapter.
So, yeah, we have, and I think we submitted those to the commission, the way the economics work with the wagering side of it. So we've already worked out the majority of those areas. We've worked with some professional rodeo people, tote companies, and mathematical models to make sure that they're in compliance with gaming.
Questions? Commissioner Schiffer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Davis, couple things since we're talking hypothetically. One, and I'm going to maybe list a couple that you can address. One is the responsibility of the Gaming Commission is to ensure as best we can that this is a safe and fair wagering opportunity. So what do you anticipate the commission presence is going to have to be at your rodeo grounds in order to accomplish the purposes that we have to take care of?
And Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be similar to the parimutuel world as far as live horse racing, that you would actually take a look at the contestants, do the background checks, making sure that the equipment's in place and that the equipment's working fairly, because we use clocks and those areas like that. We have judges. And so you have areas of just licensing the correct people, making sure all the rules and regs are being followed, making sure the association is following things that need to follow along in those areas. So the commission would be, just like you are with sports wagering, and skill games and live racing, you're the gaming commission, and things have to go through the front door to make sure it's all legit and legal. And you really want to make sure that the commission's involved. If we're going to take this on to the international level that we plan on, we want to make sure that it's got to be fair. One thing that's nice with pari-mutuel wagering is that pari-mutuel wagering is one of the best wagering systems you can have, because you can't steal the money. If you're in a facility and you're the house bank bet, that's a very difficult thing to do, because the house or the bettor has different rules to go by. A pari-mutuel wagering is just a rake. We're not involved with the people that are involved in making those wagers. So the commission's position, I would believe, would be to make sure that the owners, operators, and the participants are following the rules and protecting the public, but also protecting the participants themselves.
Follow up?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think, the state oversight of this is much different than horse racing. I mean, we have different issues involved in seeing that there's a fair game out there. For instance, if someone decides that they're going to conspire with another contestant to rig a section of the team roping, for instance, how those aren't expertises that we have running, overseeing the horse racing, and they're much different than in rodeo. So not only licensing, but as you conduct the rodeo, there's a lot of issues that we're going to have to oversee. I mean, is somebody going to buck off after a second, or, purposely miss his loop? Those kind of issues are our responsibility on an ongoing basis. And I'm hoping that you all are going to provide, concrete, constructive input to the commission on how we're going to go about overseeing that, because Nick's going to have to hire people, and we're going to have to get in the budget to deal with this whole thing that you're talking about. And it's not just a small thing. It's, if you're relaying a year-round rodeo, I mean, we're talking about really a lot of personnel. The regs are going to be part of it, but to make sure that this thing is done right, so that the public has confidence that there's a fair game out there, you all need to help us get to that. I mean, I appreciate your general answer, but it's way beyond that this commission is facing going into this endeavor. And I mean, I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea, but the nuts and the bolts fall on Nick, and it's not a simple process.
Well, I appreciate the comment and the question, but you're exactly right. The integrity of wagering is critical. It's got to be done correctly. It's got to be transparent in those areas. However, I will make a note. Live horse racing, you could get two jockeys to go one direction. Sports wagering, you could have a guy drop a football. So you're always going to have challenges in those areas. However, in the rodeo side of it, I think that we've got areas figured out that you got to stay on the bull. You can't get off the bull. You might have to have 10 bulls there, and you can bet a combination of which guys are going to stay on the bulls there and which ones aren't. I tell you, if the guy can stay on there for 8 seconds, he's pretty darn good. Now, can he conspire to stay on 8 seconds? I doubt it. It's not too easy. You're not going to get me up there. But the better question is, or not better question, but I think you put it out there so well, this would fall onto Nick and the commission itself. And I think we would say, Nick, is this something that you could envision that you could, with the right manpower, you could police it as you are policing horse racing and skill games and everything else you're doing?
President Cavallo, I like to always think that everything's doable with the money and the budget. Everything's doable. To Commissioner Schiffer's point, though, this is, we currently have investigators that are on the grounds at live horse racing tracks that know what they're looking for in this. We would have to find people that have an intricate knowledge of rodeo. And there's not a lot of people that understand, team roping, that maybe not grew up around that, barrel racing, what's right, what's wrong, what to look for. This is breaching new things that, we'd have to really build a team that understands what to look for to see if something's amiss or if there's some nefarious activity going on, because that's certainly something that none of us want. And then how we would address that too as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Frontier Days is a perfect example. Tom Hershik puts on a great event there. They do the best they can to make sure that, everybody's doing what they need to do. And so if you can envision, what better place to make in Wyoming, the state of Wyoming, the rodeo capital of the world. We can be bigger and better than Las Vegas as far as the national finals. I would say, folks, come down to the governor's breakfast when the national final is rolling there. See how many cowboys show up from Wyoming, and they are 300-400 people sitting at those tables there. So there's a lot of rodeo people here. Now, I would envision that we'll do a rough stock, just like Brandy put together the breeders program that did, $8.3 million last year. I could see how a portion of the funds could go to the rough stock for the ranchers and things like that in Wyoming. So this is only the beginning, and we want to make sure that, I'm slow, but hopefully I'm sure, and making sure that we're moving in the right step. Where I need help for that is to work on how we can get contestants licensed to make sure they're cooperating and following the rules, and immediately start working with the commission on running these ideas by them, having them do some of the licensing on myself and the association, working through these areas to make sure that we're in compliance and we're working hand in hand with the commission itself, just to answer all the questions that you just asked.
Can I go on?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for the floor again. Okay, so the next area that I'd like you to discuss would be your contractual agreements with the horsemen. Are you anticipating setting up or having I guess they're not horsemen, contestants, a contestants group? Are you going to negotiate with them with a contract from, the proceeds from your pari-mutuel handle to see that they're compensated for their participation in Frontier Rodeo?
Mr. Chairman, good question. The answer is yes. We would be taking a percentage of the pari-mutuel handle, and that would go to some of the purses in those areas in the operations. And that's one area that we'd have to work with the association, because you're going to have outside associations that are going to come in to want to use the facility that we build. Not just Frontier Rodeo Association. You'll probably have the PRCA might want to step up and have some there, and they'll compensate their people probably different than I'd compensate mine, but that's just the difference between associations. It's just like between Rock Springs and Gillette and Wyoming Downs. You have 3 different associations in all 3 of those different areas that has different rules and regs for their participants, and there's in that association.
So, I'm sorry. Do you anticipate that you're going to help us develop regulations to deal with this aspect, the horsemen's groups or the contestants groups, contestants compensation as we go forward? Because we've got a lot of rule making to do here. I mean, we don't have a rule where the horse racing, we've got a whole set of rules, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. We don't have those on the books here, and we're going to have to put those on the books before, you're going to be able to conduct a pari-mutuel event. And so, we need that help to try to figure out what's the best way forward, and from all, all participants of, how we're going to design these regulations to see that everybody is represented and compensated appropriately.
We do have a set of rules that were started on, that we've worked together. I've helped them, Tom Berry has helped them. We have a good running start on that, so that's in the works. We're not starting from ground zero, which is helpful. Are they finished? Absolutely not. But there's lots to be done there for sure. So from my point of view, obviously it's legal, you need to move forward. Looking at a budget session, if you got somebody with a lot of juice that can run forward with that, we have to be very careful about what we can do as a commission. We cannot lobby. We know what we need to do our job, and we know that we need the ability to do those background checks. But it's really not for us to be able to run down those senators and representatives to ask for that. We can put it out there and obviously you'll have to take that ball and run with it if that's.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the only thing we're really lacking is just the background checks. And so that's what we need. Our legislation is about. The governor has signed the bill in 2020 to allow rodeo to have this commission do the oversight of that. The majority of the areas on how we conduct the rodeo, how we conduct the wagering, that really lays into the association. That's all pretty much done. We're done on that side of it. So we just have the back. We could do an event as soon as you say turn the green lights on. I already have an arena I can set up, and I can do steer roping, and I could then write and get them approved on the barrel racing side of it and some of the other events. So it's a work in progress, but the majority of this is done. The main thing is I wanted to share all the exciting news here. And we do have, I think, one of the best properties in Evanston by sure, the 150 acres outside of that area and 240 acres in Cheyenne. So these are things that could be a good economic boost, I believe, for the state of Wyoming. And so we're going to work hard at it. Where you could help me, though, Mr. Chairman, is to allow the director to give the resources or the time and energy to pick up the phone and listen to me, which he's been very gracious to. He's been able to do that. He's talked to me about it. We'd like to present him some further ideas so he can get his input on it, because from a regulatory part of it, we want to make sure that we get this right. And we want to make sure, because it's the only one in the United States, of which parimutuel wagering on interstate started in Wyoming. And so when Ladbrokes came over from Europe, the first place they went to was Wyoming. And that's where the Interstate Act of, I believe, is 73, and Frank will correct me on that, it might be 78. So at some point you got to start, we're at that starting point right now, except we're a lot farther along because we already have a parimutuel system that I can do around the world wherever it's legal. And I probably talked too much, and I apologize for that.
Anyone else? Questions, input? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a hand raised. Who was it? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Cavella. Question I have, the way you talk, there would be prop betting involved in this? Or is this all who wins and who loses, or who wins?
No, yeah, this,
because you were saying you could pick your guys who could stay on. So it's kind of like sports wagering, they have prop betting.
Yeah, you're going to have different ways to wager in the system itself on rodeo events there. So you're going to be able to do some prop bets where you may say these 3 riders are going to ride, or these 4 are going to stay on the bull, or some of those areas like that. You may want to be able to pick, I'm going to predict who's going to be the first, second, and third in a barrel race competition. So there's a lot of different wagering events. That's why you have to do it on your phone, and that's why you have to be at the facility itself to watch it.
I guess my biggest thing is I'm sure not against it, but I think we're many steps away from being able to call a decision, is my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? Representative Davis, go ahead. I called on him first and then.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is, Eric, what do you
Excuse me,
envision
sir.
for the animal athletes? You know, all the stuff that we do for the equestrian athletes, the rodeo athletes, they're the horses, the steers, the bulls. Will they have to pass a vet check? Are they going to be tested? I mean, what's your vision on that?
Excellent question, Mr. Chairman. That's why rodeo needs to be separate from live horse racing. It's done different. Here you may have one rider, a roper, that have 10 different, the horse has 10 different riders on it. And so it's done different, and so you have to have rules that respect the animals and the participants. And we want to run it closer to what the PRCA does and how they run the national finals in some of those areas to make sure that the livestock is done correctly. But there are different guidelines of what they do with the animals and what they do with the participants.
Who else had their hand raised? Rocco O'Neill, the floor is yours.
Mr. President, members of the commission, my name's Rocco O'Neill. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I work for the city of Evanston, and we've been having this conversation with Frontier Rodeo for, I would say 3 or 4 years now. So Mr. Nelson and Carlene and Rosendo and Cliff and the whole group, first of all, they've done a wonderful job. They've engaged the elected officials, members of the public for 4 years and have been incredibly transparent. The community is very excited for this development. And these are A-tier people. You know, Mr. Nelson, I don't think he gives himself enough credit, but he's an innovator and he has capital and he wants to bring significant investment into the state. And so we are very excited for this. I work specifically in community and economic development, and we've been talking for a long time at a state level, but certainly at our community level about economic diversification and growing our legacy industries at the same time. And our ag industry needs new markets. The state has an office in Asia, I believe, specifically for ag exports. And so this is an incredible opportunity to grow one of those legacy industries. We don't have to choose between tradition and economic development. I think in the case for this rodeo facility, you know, we can use one to support the other. And to the legislators listening, you know, what an incredible opportunity. You could be the person or people that brought this new legislation to the state of Wyoming and grew the ag, rodeo, and ranching industry in the state. So with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'll just say something about legislation. First, the reality is, everyone, that we're going to be in a budget session, and getting anything passed is ever more difficult. Secondarily, you know, I think we probably have to work on this a little bit. Is that this did come up in our task force meeting about some changes that were proposed that would frankly expand HHR because of the rodeo gaming. And it's going to be a tough sell. You know, I mean, whether I like it or not, you know, the reality is we've got to deal with the House and Senate, and expansion of gaming, let's just say, if that's what it came down to, is going to be difficult right now to get anything through, mostly because the conversation, even to start with the budget session, is going to be difficult. So what I'm hearing is this whole thing needs legislative changes to make it so the Gaming Commission can properly do their job and go through the application for what they're trying to do, if I understand it correctly. You know, and I'm not adversarial to any of this. I think it's probably a good thing. I wouldn't want the gaming expanded, but I think rodeo is a great thing. And so I think we definitely need more conversation about this, but the reality is, everybody listening, I mean, this is my opinion as a senator, it's not going to be easy to get anything passed this year because of the reality of the session. Maybe in the next session that's non-budgetary, yeah, it's probably going to be time we can do something there. But we're going to have to do some preliminary groundwork in some committee, task force, somewhere in order to get this through. It's in the past, I mean, it's been difficult. So I guess that I just wanted to say that, and maybe maybe if someone could help me out with this, or maybe give me a phone call, that'd be great. But I think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm not negative about it. I just being a realist about the session. And I just wanted to share that with the Gaming Commission and the people that have spoken. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And who else did we have?
President Cavello, that was the only ones that I saw.
Okay. Representative Davis?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to add on to the good senator there, yes, I think education is going to be the key component because, you said it, it's very confusing how these components fit together to go forth. It's easy to start with the timed events, but if we go beyond that, how are they going to, what's your vision, And so the education component is going to be key for the legislative, my opinion, to go forth.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, actually, everything is pretty much done. The governor signed the bill. He's directed you to allow us to do rodeo events, and all the events can be set and can be fairly easy conducted and can be moved forward. The things that we need is to have a background check. The background check only requires definitions according to the FBI. Is there other sources to be able to do background checks? I don't know. But as it is right now, the FBI wants the definitions. Everything else is in place. The governor signed it in 2020 to give the direction to the commission itself to do these things. And it's all done except the definition. So it's kind of a hiccup in one sense. The definitions are what's preventing the FBI from doing background checks. And all we need is background checks, and we could have a rodeo tomorrow if you granted us the dates. Is that correct?
President Cavello, so just trying to simplify all of it. Under Wyoming law, rodeo events are classified as a parimutuel event. So wagering could take place on parimutuel rodeo events because it's listed as parimutuel event. However, statutorily, the commission is required to license all individuals that take part in all parimutuel activity. And the fact that we don't have those defined in statute, the rodeo contestants, the stock contractors, those participants, we can't submit background checks, therefore we can't license them, therefore they can't do it. Is really the nuts and bolts of it. Yeah. So it does require a legislative change on the definition side to include those folks, because ultimately what the federal government, the feds want, is the feds want the legislative body, the legislators, to grant our office the authority to run background checks on these people. So if they write those people into it, then we have the ability to do those backgrounds. To Mr. Nelson's point, we actually worked, if you'll remember, over the course of probably the last 2 years, we worked the rodeo rules pretty extensively. We got 26 pages of rodeo rules that are pretty close to being done. The reason that they were not finished is because they were tabled because of this, because we can't do anything with them. Until they change the law, we don't have a lot of options to do anything.
Very good. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and energy, and we'll just keep at it and keep swinging. But we're back in the saddle, so we'll see you in a next commission meeting, give you another update.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Now we're going to move on to 11B. Nick, would you like to introduce that?
Certainly. Mr. President, 11B is another request. This is from a group of Wyoming horsemen. They would like to just kind of speak to you. President Cavello, I had given you a petition, a rule change petition. Looks like it's signed by just under 100 people. I will let them take it from here, and they can discuss what they're here to discuss, and then we'll be available to answer some questions.
Please introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
I'm Steve Waziski.
I'm Kelly Waziski.
I'm Dan LaPierre. A little background, I started racing horses in '99, bought my first brood mare in 2000, was on the board of the Wyoming All Breeds for 20-some years, and now we're in a situation that the Wyoming bred program is in a bind, and we need some rule changes or it's gonna go downhill faster than it's going down now. So that's what we're here for. The first change we want is, right now, the way it reads is they have to offer one Wyoming bred race per day for thoroughbreds and quarter horses. And we need that to move up because we've got too many horses. For example, just taking horses out of races, we're averaging about 4 outs a year or less per horse. And that's, the 2-year-olds are averaging 4.3 races per year as of this week. The older horses are 4.7, the 3-year-olds are 4.1. That's not feasible when you try to sell a horse. Somebody says, well, we want to buy a Wyoming bred, but you got to buy your races in. You get 3 races. If you qualify, you get more. But they're sitting on the horses and not getting no outs. And so the Wyoming bred program is not like it used to be. Thoroughbreds are getting a little more because we got less thoroughbreds. But as of the commissions, we've got over 1,000 mares in the breed program. And last year we had 223 mares. This year we had 319 mares. And let's see, 91 stallions we have in the program now. The horses, we had over 100 in the futurities. And so I don't know how many there is exactly, 2-year-olds running and 3-year-olds running. They didn't give me that list from the commission. But if the way it's going now, I mean, next year, you know, we could possibly have 200. And so that's double what we had this year. And so our numbers are gonna drop if we don't get more Wyoming bred races. If you go to any other state, you know, New Mexico, if I take a horse from here to go down to New Mexico, I'm gonna sit 6 or 8 weeks trying to get a horse in a race down there. And it's just the opposite here. Out-of-staters come in and their horses are seeming to be getting in, and the Wyoming breds are sitting in the stalls, if you get stalls. There's everybody's short of stalls, we understand that. But when Wyoming bred horses gotta go home because there's no stalls, or they gotta go to another state and stall up and haul in, I don't think that's right. I may be wrong, but that's my opinion. And so we're asking for you guys to look at it and see if we can't change some rules. I personally think Wyoming horses should have preference on stalls, and then the stakes horses should have second preference, and then the people that are coming in and taking stalls and just training to go to other states to run, you know, they shouldn't be able to do that. I know doesn't happen very often, but it did happen this year. And that's, as being a breeder and an owner and a horseman, I don't think that's fair. So we're asking for you guys to look at it and see if we can't get more Wyoming bred races and more stalls for Wyoming horses. Because the money that we bring in stays in the state. These people that come in, run out of state, they come in and take the purse money and go back to wherever they come from. And I'm not real good at this, so I apologize.
Do it your way. You're just fine.
So that's what we're asking for. And I mean, then we'll
You're
get
asking
into
for,
some other
so you're
stuff.
asking for 4 quarter horse and 4 thoroughbred
Yes.
4 quarter horses
per day,
day,
Per race.
per day, if,
per race day.
per race day. If the thoroughbreds, we don't have enough yet. They're coming. I mean, with the 1,000, I have no idea how many are thoroughbreds. But if we write the race and they don't fill, then they can open it up.
So now typically, how many races are there a day? 10 or 12?
Well, it depends. Some Fridays are 7 in Rock Springs right now. There's 7 races on Fridays, 10 and 10, unless there's trials, and then they'll write 12 or whatever they need to
So
make.
you're asking to go to 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 12 a day being Wyoming bred.
Wyoming bred. Sure.
Commissioner, thank you. What we're looking for is them to be wrote as Wyoming preferred. Not necessarily we want to take all the races. If we have enough horses that are Wyoming breds, then they would be Wyoming races. Otherwise, it would be opened up to all horses, if that makes sense to you. We know that the operators, there's fine lines that they can offer a goofball race that nobody's gonna enter. But it says Wyoming bred, so it takes care of one of their races. And we just want some help. That's what we want.
Earlier, sorry.
Go right ahead. Please.
Earlier, Frank Lamb had mentioned the outs that Wyoming Downs had as per starts. And he issued 9.1 for quarter horses, and he issued 8.6 for the thoroughbreds. And that seems like a lot for horses, but he didn't state they were Wyoming breds. He just stated per horse. As Steve stated earlier, with the Wyoming breds, we're getting only 4. And this is Wyoming, this is our state, and it should be preferred that our horses are getting to see the track before the outside horses. We're building this up to build for us and bring outside people, but we also are building it up for the breeders to be able to participate with other people and other horses. Does that make sense?
Director Laramendi.
President Cavello, just so you're all aware, some of the phone calls that I've received from the horsemen, and I guess maybe part of their concern with it is, I handed out a list of all of the written Wyoming bred races to you all for Wyoming Downs, Energy Downs, Sweetwater Downs. Those that are highlighted in green, those are paid stakes races. Some of the concerns that I've heard from horsemen is, these are paid stakes. They're actually paying to take part in this race anyway. And then it's a paid stakes that's being written for them to partake. They don't necessarily, some of them don't feel that that's necessarily fair, that these should be, just overnights. Some of the other horsemen that I've talked to have said that, they feel like maybe like a Wyoming bred will be written as a claiming race, a 2-year-old claiming race. And these are 2-year-old horses that these folks have put money into for the last, probably 3 years. And then they're going to risk losing their horse in order for that to be written, so they won't enter into that. So I just wanted to give you that information. That is the number, those spreadsheets show all of the written numbers. There is a few on, actually, I think on all of them, that no Wyoming bred races were written at all. So if you look at Wyoming Downs, the 25th and 26th, there was no Wyoming bred races run. There was no Wyoming bred races run on the 2nd of August. Energy Downs, it looks like there was 2 days, the 26th and the 1st, and the 13th of June. and then Sweetwater Downs, the 23rd, 24th, and then the September 21st, there was no Wyoming bred races run. Other days have, you know, like if you look at Wyoming Downs, day 6, the entire day was futurities. So they ran 10 races. All of those were the Wyoming Downs futurity. The 12th, it looks like there was maybe just one quarter horse, no thoroughbred. So just for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or any comments? Commissioner Bowl and then Commissioner.
So Nick, do we have a rule or regulation that requires the operators to have so many Wyoming bred races?
President Covello, Commissioner Bowl, we do. Chapter 8, Section 6 of the rules, it mandates that each permittee shall write one Wyoming bred quarter horse and one Wyoming bred thoroughbred race, preferred each day.
And so what you're asking is that we increase that number to what?
4 and 4.
4 and 4.
Okay. And you're petitioning the commission to enter into rulemaking to consider that change. Is that correct?
Correct.
Absolutely.
So, Nick, can you opine that if, say, Wyoming Downs doesn't write those races, is there any repercussions to Wyoming Downs for not doing that?
President Covello, Commissioner Schiffer, potentially, yes, there is. So the information gets compiled, the information would be sent to our prosecuting attorney, not Mr. Kaler, the other one. He would produce an order to show cause or a notice of setting, send that to them, and then they would have to come before you all and explain to you why they failed to write said races. And then you would all have you all have the ability to sanction the permittee for whatever you see fit.
Follow up.
Is one of those sanctions that they don't comply with their requirement to run 16 days? Is if they didn't write a Wyoming bred race on a certain day, would that be considered in whether they complied with their day number requirement?
President Covello, Commissioner Schiffer, I don't believe under the current regulatory structure that would. I know you and I have talked about that, and I think that might be a very smart way to look at it. You know, we had looked back a while back, we were looking at rule changes to define what a race day was, i.e. 7 cards, so on and so forth. And this might be one of those things that you say minimum of 7 cards, one of which is this, one of which is that. If you fail to write one of this and one of that, it's not considered a race day. And then if you fail to run 16 of those days, you put your simulcast permits in jeopardy. But currently, I don't think that the rule would support the commission determining that was failed to be a day.
Can I go on?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, you know, when we're all reincarnated in this world, the one person you don't want to be is a racing secretary, because you have no friends on either side, right? The horsemen are never happy with the races that are presented to them, and the management wants 10, 12 horse fields, not maiden races, because everybody bets on those and they don't like to bet on 6 horse fields and maiden races. So, you know, it's a no-win situation. And the purpose of racing in Wyoming, is the stated purpose, is to, you know, get the breeding industry, the racing industry, the agriculture industry in Wyoming to move forward. That's why we're here. That's why we've got parimutuel racing. And you all, I agree with you, you know, we need and we will have better representation of Wyoming bred races in the future, but you have to have the breeding industry and the growth to be able to allow the racing secretaries to write races, you know, that are going to help the other side, the management side. So non-maiden races, 10, 12, 8, 10, anything 8 and above participants, people bet on them, and that's what they need. So, you know, I'm not sure that 4 races per day is going to help you, because the racing secretary is going to write a race, you know, for pinto horses that with 3.5 legs or something like that, so that, you know, they aren't going to go, you know, because they're going to do that. That's what they do. You know, I think there's other ways that you can help your industry grow, and you know, we need to look at that. For instance, I've been reading that another state is now paying incentive awards to people who buy mares at auction and bring them into the state to be producing Wyoming, you know, state-bred horses. You know, those are the kind of things that the racing secretary has nothing to do with, and they can't argue with you, you know, or write them so that you can't do. So we need to look at ways, you know, through legislation or regulations to help our industry go forward. And it's really important. And there's a lot of change going on in, you know, in horse populations that are leaving California, leaving, you know, other states, you know, that we need to recruit into Wyoming to help our industry grow. And so that, you know, in the future, we're going to have that number of potential entrants that those racing secretaries are going to say, hey, you know, this is a great opportunity for Wyoming breds, and we're going to write races for them. And so, you know, I think we need to open up our horizons here and really look at, you know, ways to get this thing going. And that's just a comment. It's not a question, or, you know, I'm all for you. You know, that's why we're here. But it's time is not, you know, we're not quite there to that point yet. And we need to work on getting there. Thank you.
My opinion with regards to your request today is, I think there's probably some merit maybe to some of what you're asking for. To go from 1 a day to 4 a day, to me, seems like a huge jump all at one time. And I don't know if that is the correct way to go, number one. And number two, I want to hear the other side of the story as well, and have some time to research it and maybe get some questions back from staff. So in my mind, I wouldn't want to be in a position to have to make that determination today. I would like to do it in November, after we've had a chance to get some information back from our staff, to hear the other side of the story, and to have more good conversation about this, because I think there's merit to your request, but right now it seems going from 1 to 4 is a large jump. Maybe I'm wrong, but I need further education and edification.
That's fine.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Have you guys went to the permittees to ask them if they could write more, or are they receptive? I guess my question is, the horses, are they up to the standard? Are they, you know, we are relatively young in our breeding program. You know, do we have the horses that are up to the standard for more races, I guess is my question.
Can I answer that?
Absolutely.
Commissioners, I know of 3 different occasions at Wyoming Downs that there were 60 horses entered in a race that was Wyoming bred, and they did not use it and used the open thoroughbred.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
No, my question was, have you gone to and presented this to the permittees who are in charge of writing these races? Have you brought those concerns up with them, is my question? Or have you just went to us? Thank you.
I have see, how can I say this? I have one trainer that went to the race secretary and talked to him. And race secretary, his words was, no, and I don't care if I ride a Wyoming bred race. That individual will be more than happy to talk with any of you guys behind closed doors, but he doesn't want to come out in public because if he comes out in public, like myself, I just put a big X on my back. Because when you bring something up like this, number one, the track owners they're straight up not a problem, I don't think, I hope. Race secretaries, as you said, nobody likes them and they're always picked on. But when you ask race secretary to ride a race and his words are, no, and I really don't care if I ever ride a Wyoming bred race, that is not right. Every person on that list that signed that petition all said the same thing, that the race secretary need to be removed. But that's not between me or that's not to you, that's the track owners. They can do what they want with the race secretaries. But when the race secretary writes a Wyoming bred race, and I'll get into this on my next deal, and there's 20 or 30 horses entering a Wyoming bred race, and they don't use that race that's in the book, and they put a different race in for, in my opinion, some of their buddies that come up from down south, and they write the races for them, and the Wyoming people are getting hosed over again. That is not right. And like I said, I'm not gonna bring the guy's name up. If you guys wanna know behind closed doors, and you can talk to him, but he does not want his name in public because he's a trainer and he's done, is his opinion and way he's afraid of. Most everybody on that list said the same thing. They didn't want to come because they're putting a black leg on there or an X on them where they're not gonna, get horses in. More than likely next week, I won't get a horse in, which I know that, and I've got broad shoulders. So we have an issue with what's going on. There's some other things that's going on that will be brought up, and I hope you guys listen to them too.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Follow up. So then if I'm hearing you correctly, the horsemen's group are not lobbying the permittees to do this better? Is that where the disconnect is? Because what you're telling me is you've done this and you've done this, but United as the horsemen's group going forth would seem to carry a better precedence, in my opinion.
We have the Wyoming All Breeds Association for a Horsemen's Group. And I don't know what they did. I was on the board for 20 years. Well, I wasn't on the board for 20 years. I was affiliated with them for 20 years. And they go their way. They have their beliefs. I have my beliefs. Their beliefs ain't my beliefs. Not bad mouthing them. They do their thing, and it's just not the way I'm not on the same page they are. We're starting another horsemen's group, and that's the Wyoming All Breeds doesn't like that idea. But we are gonna start a new horsemen's group that will fight a little more for the horsemen, I hope. But as of right now, we really don't have a horsemen's group that is for, in my opinion, all the horsemen. And I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Bull?
Are you done? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What would be the harm in accepting the petition for rulemaking and starting the rulemaking process, which would require, preparing a rule, submitting it out for public comment. We could have a public hearing on it and then decide. And of course, I can't promise you how it would come out. I can't even promise you how I would vote. But it seems to me that when you get a petition from from the people who are involved in it to initiate rulemaking, that it would be a good idea to start the process. And we would get the public input that you're interested in, Mr. Chairman, and then we could decide. It sounds like the rule's fairly straightforward. One, and we could change the number to 4 and go through the rulemaking process. So I would make a motion that we accept the petition for rulemaking and that we initiate the rulemaking process to amend whatever the rule is. What is the rule, Nick?
1 and 1.
President Cavello, Commissioner Bowl, it'd be amending Chapter 8, Section 6. And I don't have the first part of it, but it's D.
All right, so moved, and then you would need to understand, and I don't know if I'll get a second for that motion, but you need to understand that then there's a formal process that we go through, and everybody would have their chance to lay it out on the line. The other thing I need to confess to you is this is all new to me. I'm learning. I'm learning today, and as these folks will tell you, I'm trying to learn all the time. So I don't know where I would come down on this issue, but I do think it's worth going through the public process and the discussion that takes place in rulemaking to decide whether or not we need to make a change, and if so, how much. Maybe 4 races is too much, but that could be decided during the rulemaking process. So that's my motion, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if anybody will second it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
We have a second. Discussion. So let's clarify. The motion on the floor is to begin the rule-making process, or to accept this petition, excuse me.
To do both, accept the petition and initiate the rule-making process.
Okay, accept the petition, initiate the rulemaking process to change the number of Wyoming bred races per day,
Correct,
both on the quarter horse and thoroughbred side.
correct.
Okay,
I think it's a little, I'm not sure what, excuse me, I'm not sure what, there's a little more to it than that. There's also order of preference and stall, and issuance of stalls in the letter that Mr. Wasicki wrote, but I'm not sure if that's part of the petition.
It is.
It is, okay, so there is, it is a little more complicated than just the 4 races per day.
so do you want to just start that process, or do you want to go through the barns as well? Because we haven't even talked about it yet.
Oh, do we address barns and stuff like that in our current rule?
President Cavello, Commissioner Bowl, we do not. And in all honesty, it would probably be easiest to just take this in its entirety and put it all in its entirety, and then as we go through the process, we can line out, add, remove,
Okay,
change,
so that's
whatever.
my motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
I still second it.
Okay, so we're going to accept the petition, begin the rulemaking process to address both the Wyoming bred races and barn preference.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Commissioners, discussion? Troy, Ruben, Chief, anyone here? I have some, I wonder if we're jumping from 1 to 4, if that's too much, number 1, and number 2. And of course, this can all be addressed during the change, but this is discussion, and I also wonder if we have any business in determining who gets the barns. Is that more of a private business decision or not? And so as we go through that, I would question whether we should have any say in that whatsoever. But obviously, we'll go through that during the rulemaking process. Anyone else have any discussion from the commission? From the public?
President Covello. I believe Mr. Joyce.
Yes, Mr. Joyce. Your hand is up and the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot to consider. Eugene Joyce, Wyoming Horse Racing LLC, on this matter. You know, and again, I didn't know about this petition. I just, until we got the packet on this, I've not talked to Dan LaPierre or Steve Wasicki on this. I will tell you that we had a meeting between management and the Wyoming All-Breeds Association this past Sunday morning, and we discussed a lot of things. And one of the things we discussed was the problem of getting horses run, Wyoming-bred 2-year-old quarter horses run, and it's a very complex issue. There's a lot of that goes into it, and so there are ways to make this happen. One of the things we realized, and again, I will be providing the All Breeds Association and the Commission some metrics to go by, and horse racing produces nothing but numbers, and there's a lot to consider here, folks. And we will crunch some numbers. We know every horse that ever entered on any day back since the dawn of time. So we can crunch these numbers and look at this. One of the things we've identified is that 2-year-old Wyoming bred quarter horses point to futurities, so that 2 to 3 weeks out, they're looking to get a race in before they run in that trial. Now, I know that the commission staff's viewpoint is that quarter horse trials do not count towards a Wyoming bred race, yet you have to write it. And I think Commissioner Schiffer's probably the only one that really understands the inside baseball of writing races in a condition book. And I will admit to you that on trial days, we know we're going to be running 10, 11 races. We don't have room for the Wyoming bred races. And so he's right. We write a race that, 2-year-old Wyoming bred thoroughbred for a claiming price of $2,500 going a mile and a 16th. We know it's not going to fill, but we're also trying to put a race card on. And I think that this rule needs to be looked at, and I support Commissioner Bowles' effort to do that. But from our standpoint, you need to look at the totality of the race meet, and you need to look at, where the logjam is. So we keep track of these records, and I'll tell you that Sweetwater Downs averages 3.5 Wyoming bred races a day. Okay, 65%, roughly 65% of our quarter horse races, 65% of all races are quarter horse races. 60% of that number are Wyoming bred quarter horses. So 60% of all the quarter horse races run at my racetrack are Wyoming bred races. And I'll define it as a race where 100% of the horses in that race are Wyoming bred. In addition to that, just looking at, my overnights, the past couple weeks, you'll have open races where you'll have 4, 5, 6 Wyoming breds running an open company. And I'll tell you the importance about having open races. Okay, it's kind of an advertising vehicle for our whole Wyoming bred program. And I'll say this: our open futurity was the richest race in Wyoming. The breeds in that race were 12 states were represented in the breeds in that race. You have horsemen based on that saying, I need some Wyoming bred horses because the program's so good, it exposes our product to them, and they're coming in. we had 3 of the top 10 quarter horse jockeys race in the trials and in the finals. I mean, guys that have won the All-American Futurity, the All-American Derby. In the thoroughbred world, it'd be like having John Velasquez, Flavian Pratt, and Irad Ortiz showing up at your racetrack. So there's a lot of metrics we need to look at as to whether the Wyoming bred program is successful, and it needs to be considered as we look at this. I wish I had talked to Dan and Steve about this prior to it, but I just want you to know it's a topic that we're following up on with our representative horsemen's group. And then last but not least, let me just say something. And you've heard me say this before. You know, it's not a long line to get to me. And with regards to my racing secretary, and I'll speak his name is Sean Windsor. And I've worked with some of the best racing secretaries ever in this country, guys that are in the Hall of Fame in Saratoga, New York. You know, I've worked with Tommy Trotter, Howard Battle. I've worked with guys like on the West Coast, Mike Harlow. I've worked with so many people. Sean Windsor is currently the racing secretary at Sunland Park and Sunray Park and Casino in New Mexico. He's one of the finest racing secretaries I've ever worked with. That's number one. Number two, and I've told this to our representative horsemen's group, that condition book does not go out with me checking every race in there, okay? So like I said, if you have a problem with my racing secretary or my condition book, come on in. I'm willing to talk to you. But, you know, personal attacks, and there was one such case at Wyoming Downs this year, okay, where a horseman came uncorked on the racing secretary, all right? And I called him up the day after and told him, you ever pull that in my race office, you'll never race here again. You know, we all have passion for the sport. I get it. We all want a perceived outcome. I get it. But we need to be respectful of the people that work in this industry, both sides. I try to be respectful of the horsemen and their ideas. I try to work with them and to figure that out. So at the end of the day, I support looking into this. I will tell you, it is fraught with difficulties. We write 9 races a day in our book. If we have 8 that are Wyoming breds, I mean, we'll get the races run, but it just makes it really, really difficult. But I look forward to an ongoing conversation. I look forward to giving the commission information so they can make a well-informed decision. And with that, Mr. President, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce.
Can I ask him a question?
You most certainly can.
On Sunday, did you ride a Wyoming bred race, Eugene?
I'd have to look at the book, Steve. You're obviously telling me I didn't. Is that right? Okay. So, Steve, let me ask you, in the totality of things, is it better to get more races for Wyoming breds, or are you worried about one specific day when we didn't ride a race? Is that the end of the world that we didn't write that race?
On the human side, no. On the horse side, yes. Them horses need to be out. The trainers are upset. They're not getting no outs. The horses ain't getting no outs. And when they do get out, they need to have more than 3 or 4 outs a year. Do you agree or disagree? On any racehorse?
Mr. President, can I answer that?
Yes.
Steve, I agree that we are slaves to the calendar, and you want to get horses out as many starts. I'm a horse owner myself, okay? I have a lot of horses that only get 3 or 4 outs in a year, okay? But a lot goes into what day they can run, all right? So I'm happy to have this discussion. I'm having that discussion with my representative horsemen's group. And I really don't appreciate, you know, and I know you, Steve, you're on my cell phone, I'm on your cell phone, you know, but I don't appreciate, you know, the gotcha attitude that you're going to put our feet to the fire and kind of paint the picture that we turn a blind eye to this and we're not willing to work with you on this. I mean, I get it. It's a problem getting these horses run, but there's a lot more. There's other solutions than adding 8 Wyoming bred races to our condition book.
Brandy, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Thank you, President Cavella, commissioners. As the administrator of the Wyoming Bred Program, I would just like to let you know that it is a problem us getting accredited Wyoming breds entered and racing in Wyoming. It's only going to get harder because the number, as you can see, we just did 320 some new broodmares, taking our broodmare total to 1,000, which means we could literally in 2 years have 1,000 2-year-olds running, okay, that are going to be eligible to run. And I agree that 4 might be too many. I think it's a discussion we need to have, but I do believe that it is time that the discussion has to be had on what is a good number. And let me just preference to say it's not just a rule. Writing 1 in 1 is a statutorial. It's in our statutes. Okay, so it is important, and it or it wouldn't have been in our statutes to begin with. Back in the day, our program was not as successful as it is now. You know, we might have had 100 horses running during the year. And Eugene focused on the 2-year-olds, but there was some horses at Wyoming Downs that had 0 dates on the last day. So that means they didn't run at all during the whole meet. They didn't get to run during the whole meet. So we had Wyoming bred sitting back there that did not get a chance to participate. And they weren't just 2-year-olds. So that's something that we need to look at. I know the what Nick handed out to you shows how many Wyoming breds were ran versus there's a tab there that had the exclusions on it. That means that's how many horses entered plus the exclusions meant that's how many Wyoming breds were left in the box. So when you enter into a race, as many horses that fit that condition can enter. They only take 10 horses. At Sweetwater, you know, it's a problem because each race they only allow 8 horses to run 2-year-olds for their safety reasons. So there's a lot of discussion to be had. I think it's very important that we look into this. I get phone calls, inundated with phone calls every day from horsemen that are frustrated, and the numbers don't lie. You know, I appreciate Eugene wanting to give us the numbers, but we have the numbers ourselves. You guys have the numbers there in front of you. I supply an accredited bred race every a tabulation at the end of every year. So we have all of those, but I will tell you that with having 1,000 broodmares now going from 400 to 600 to 800 to now 1,000 in 4 years, we are going to have a problem and need to look at maybe not what's happening now, but what's happening a couple years when these 2-year-old, when these 1,000 broodmares have these babies and they start running, because that's just 1,000 2-year-olds. So you could have 1,000 2-year-olds running to, you know, you could have 800 3-year-olds and then older horses. So you could literally have about 3 to 4,000, you know, at a time coming in. Will that happen? It's doubtful just because of, you know, it's hard to get a life full, but these 1,000 mares should show you the growth of this program. And we need to also look at how to protect the program, protect Wyoming breds, because if Wyoming breds can't race and they only get 2 outs, 3 outs a year, I can tell you the value of that horse is going to drop, because we've had people this year say, just come pick them up because you know, we can't afford to keep them in training. They only get 1 out at a meet, you know, and so I just want you guys to know that. But that, I do think it's an important discussion, and I appreciate you know, Steve and Dan bringing that to the attention, because we have gotten so many calls, inundated actually with calls from horsemen that are discouraged. Thank you.
Go ahead.
May I add to that? I've talked to Matt Dunn from Dunn Ranch. I've talked to several other big breeders that are talking about buying land right here in Wyoming because we have such a good program. We don't have a good program if you can't run your babies. That's the bottom line.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We're going to proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will start the rulemaking process. And that will begin at our meeting in November.
Now we can get to the easy thing.
There was some discussion points.
On the Wyoming Gaming Commission, they say on the rule, and I don't remember what rule number it is we cannot run a quarter horse on a transfer if we claim a horse. So if there's a $5,000 quarter horse claimer and we claim the horse on the thoroughbreds, they just push the paper over there and you can run. But a quarter horse, you have to send the papers back to the quarter horse people. One track says you can run on transfer, the other two say you cannot run on transfer. I'd like a rule change where everybody's on the same page and that would help claiming these horses, because nobody wants to claim a horse in Wyoming, a quarter horse, because it takes for so long to get the papers back. And then time the papers get back, the race meet might be over.
President Covello, I'm not sure about this one. I will tell you, we already have several chapters kind of open. We have 2, 8, 6 for a lot of the stuff from the safety inspections that we were working on. I can look into this and I don't know if we really need a motion. I can put some language in there that for you all to consider when we go through all those chapters on this as well.
Perfect.
If you'd like.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Brandy. Floor is
Thank
yours.
you, President Cavella. First of all, the transfer, I don't mean to tell him that he's misspoken, but he has misspoken. We do have a rule that says you cannot run on a transfer. And there's a very specific reason why that happens. On a racing level, you have people come in and run on transfers and they never actually fulfill that transfer. So that means they never send it to AQHA. Our rules state that in order to pay an owner for Wyoming bred money, that they have to have, we use the AQHA's ownership records for that. If a horse does not do the transfer, then that means it doesn't go to the official registry. We found horses in the past that ran on had 5 transfers attached to these horses' papers. That means 5 times this horse turned hands and never made it to the official breed registry. I am totally against that. And if you do claim a horse, actually, the stewards can approve that should go that weekend. It should go right to the AQHA, and there's a person there at AQHA that will do it and send it right back to the racetrack where they don't lose their dates, they don't lose anything. So I'm not sure why that was said. No, actually, no racetrack should let you run on a transfer because that is against our rules. And so there's no reason to change it because you can already do a transfer and get it sent off with the steward's approval to where you don't lose a date and then they send it right back to the racetrack. So that I just wanted to clarify that there's no reason for a rule change because you can claim a horse, you can run it, and you don't lose a date. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That explained that one. That clarified that for me. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
We're done.
I believe that concludes item 11. Item 12, do we have any need for an executive session?
No, Mr. President.
You? Meeting dates. We have a meeting coming up November 20th and 21st, and that will be our annual fall meeting. Nick, can you give us an idea of what you're thinking there?
President Cavello, item 13, yes, the November meeting will be held on November 20th and 21st. The plan as of right now is to start at about 1 o'clock on November 20th, Thursday. We're going to be having several people come in to do some presentations. These are going to be unique this time. We got a gentleman coming from FinCEN. He was a federal prosecutor. He's going to be coming in here to talk about money laundering and some of the risks that happened with that. We have a member of Nickel-G's coming in. He sits on the West Virginia House of Delegates as well. And the TRPB is going to be here to do a presentation about some parimutuel stuff. After that, we will have a meet and greet, still firming up the specifics on that for that evening, and then we'll hold the full day of the fall meeting on the 21st, on Friday.
Very good, thank you. General discussion and public comment. Anything from the commissioners with regards to general discussion? What about the public? You have anything you'd like to talk about that hasn't been on the agenda? Any commission directives?
President Cavello, I just kind of added that in there for you all to tell me what to do.
Carry on.
Thank you. I will do that. I will start preparing these rule changes. I think what we'll do is I'll just add these ones into the already changes that we already have drafted in Chapter 8 for the safety inspections. I'll get that sent out to the Rules Committee by the end of next week, and then maybe the Rules Committee can meet and we can try to get it as clean as possible prior to the fall meeting. That would be ideal.
Perfect.
That's all I have, sir.
If nothing else, the meeting is adjourned. Enjoy lunch. Thank you all for coming.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Where did those folks